All right. Good evening. Welcome to episode 75. Pretty big number, 75.
Yep.
Just talking, before that, I can't realize how it was. We're just looking at some old episodes.
Yeah.
I can't realize how long we've been doing this. It seems like just yesterday. So read a quick bio. I'm getting into the bios now, reading some bios on that, using SSgt to do some bios here. So I'm loving it. Progressing here as I go along. So today's guest is someone who embodies grit, growth, and service on and off the battlefield, born and raised in Dalesville, which is near Schenectady. I know that. New York. He grew up in humble beginnings and enlisted in the United States Air Force just 3 months after graduating from high school in 2001. Over the next 9 years, he served as an F-15 crew chief and instructor, stationed at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa with deployments and assignments spanning Korea, Guam, Thailand, and Afghanistan. He earned numerous awards and decorations. He secured a line number for technical sergeant before separating in 2010. We'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yep.
After his military service, he launched a successful civilian career in safety and operations, holding leadership roles across aerospace, oil and gas, automotive manufacturing, warehousing, and construction. Today, he serves as a safety director for Rasculi. Dude, you're killing me with all this stuff today. Holy cow, I got to work on my phonetics on this. Construction, I just have you. I'm just going to point to you when you got to say it right.
Yeah, you got it.
He holds 2 associate degrees from the Community College of the Air Force, a bachelor's in professional aeronautics from Embry-Riddle, and a master's in environmental sustainability, health and safety management from RIT. He's also a husband, father, bodybuilder, bourbon collector, cigar enthusiast, and competitive skeet shooter. He shares his life with his wife, Adrian, whom he met while he was stationed in Okinawa. We could talk about that more. Yeah. Good story. Yep. And their 2 sons, Nate and Dom. He's passionate about mental health and suicide prevention. He advocates for programs like Warriors Wangling Walleye. That's that's like a tongue twister.
That's tough.
Project Healing Waters. Patriots on the Fly, Save a Warrior, and veterans partnerships with organizations like the Gary Sneeze Foundation. Please welcome to the show a man who's turned service into purpose and adversity in action, Joe Martyniuk.
Oh, that's so close. Yeah, that was a good one.
But welcome to episode 75.
Yeah, thank you.
I've been trying to do the mess around with ChatGPT a little bit. I got to correct it.
That was beautiful.
Thank ChatGPT.
And
your
really
thing,
good.
I just throw it in there. No, it's a good thing to mess with, and it's not all ChatGPT. I'm kidding around. Can't give them all that credit, but we'll have a lot. If you see, we're gonna have a lot of Air Force jokes tonight. It's a sad day when we have to put up the Air Force flag in the Miller basement. I just have to say, we feel really bad about it. Last night, ceremony of I actually took the Marine flag down yesterday for you because we had 2 Marines, and I was like, God, the Marines are pretty cool. I don't admit that. I'm like, it's a cool flag. Yeah. I'm like, it's buried behind there now. So we got to get some Army guys back on here soon. So as always, we'll start each episode with a quote. So this is a quote from another crew chief, Senior Master Sergeant Chief Christopher McDonald. As a crew chief, I salute the pilot to release the aircraft to them while letting them know that they're leaving with a good jet. When he returns that salute, he is telling me that he will take care of it and return it back safely. There is a kind of trust between the crew chief and the pilot.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the coolest things, if you haven't seen, the Air Force has when you guys are saluting off and all the crazy stuff. So what's the story behind that? Because I've never really asked anybody that. Why do you guys get kind of crazy with it?
We do, yeah. We always like to say that you need a college degree to fly the jet and a high school degree to fix it. So that's our saying. But it's perfectly true. Like when we're launching out a jet, we're the ones who make sure it's safe for that pilot to fly out and come back. And our names are on the jet, as is the pilot.
Right.
But we take care of it. I was 18 years old and I had my own name on my jet, and I was responsible for that maintenance of that jet.
Yeah.
But our bond is crazy. Usually stay wherever you're stationed on that same jet, same pilot, and you actually bond with them pretty well as you're flying or as you're working on the jet with them.
So, but you guys have some crazy salutes. So it's not just a normal salute. You guys are doing all kinds of crazy. What's like? Is that just your flair, that you get to throw on it, or what's?
Yeah, it's funny. Back in the day, we really didn't have cameras when I was doing it in way early 2000s in Japan. But yeah, you can put a little flair on it. People do combat rolls. You have to make sure everything's out of your pocket so it doesn't get stuck in the intake when you're going near it. But yeah, I like to do that. I like to do just the 3-foot shuffle and give them a crazy salute and send them off. Sometimes you see some gang signs out there. It's really good, depending on your pilot. And then you have some, crazy test pilots that go up who, aren't clean shaven and they look kind of gnarly, but they turn their engines off in the middle of the air. So that's what you get from them.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is true. That is very true what you said about college degree and high school guys. I mean, barely some. I mean, Air Force is better than some of the other branches when it comes to
I mean, maybe I heard
the graduation
that. Yeah,
rates. I think are a little bit different. So, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like $16 million aircraft is being maintained by some young people.
Yeah, and our tech school is probably 6 months long, and then we go active, and you do your 6 months Wichita Falls, and then you get to go to your follow-on training out at Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City, and you literally have 30 days on how to physically launch a live jet. And your instructor, what I was doing is literally right behind you, ready to grab you in case you get too close to the intake, or in front of the bay doors, getting ready to get you out of there.
And a crew chief, we'll talk more about one of the coolest aircraft. I think the F-15, I think, is still a kick-ass aircraft.
Yeah.
So let's talk about growing up upstate New York.
Yeah. So a small family. My mother and father had a ton of brothers and sisters, immigrant parents on both sides, grandparents on both sides, and then just me and my brothers way upstate New York. So our town was really small. I graduated 45 people. Our elementary school was connected to a hallway to middle school and connected to high school. So we went to the same school with everybody all throughout it. Yeah. And a lot of snow. It was kind of just a quiet town. One of my first airplane rides was going to basic training. So grew up sort of not well off, sort of not a lot of money. So we didn't really go anywhere. Kind of stayed in way upstate New York, maybe Old Forge, Lake Placid area was like our main vacation.
So growing up a small place like that, what are some of the challenges of 45 people in your high school class? Kind of hard to hide.
Yeah. So there's no hiding.
Yeah.
Everyone knew everybody in that town. And then having a mother who worked in like the doctor's office, she'd come home with information about, the city going around. I don't know if that's ethical or not, but that's kind of what's going on.
There's got to be a statute of limitations.
We're fine. We're fine. That was a couple of years ago. But yeah, everyone was in everybody's business. So you knew who everybody was dating. You knew who everybody was about to break up. Everybody in our school worked in that town. So you either worked at the pizza place, the Chinese place that we had, or like a little drive-in that we had.
So what's that like though, knowing that like everybody knows your business? Is there like that feeling of everybody's watching you? Like, I mean, is there times that you wish you could have hidden?
Yeah. My high school career was kind of weird. I didn't do too well in school. I graduated 45th out of 47 for my graduating class. Cause I just didn't really have that family support to, hey, you have an assignment due, or hey, you have Alex that you're doing and you're not doing it, which is terrible in the state. But yeah, there was no support kind of growing up. So I just hung out with friends' houses most of the time as soon as I got my license.
So what were you doing when you weren't studying, hanging out?
Lots of stuff. So we did that stuff. That was a long time ago. I actually lost some of that memory with a head injury I had in the military, but
that's your story, or that really happened?
That really happened. Yeah. But no, we had our big thing was sand pits. So, like hanging out in like a cornfield or a sand pit, we would all go to the same sand pits around the, I can't remember the name of it. It was like a quarry kind of thing, but we all went to sand pits in our cars and just illegally drank at that age. So
how early do you think you started drinking?
Probably like 14 or 15 going out that way. We kind of stayed real close to home because we had pretty strict parents growing up. But once the license came, I'd hang out at my friend's house all the time. We just kind of go out there. It was kind of a way different way of life. Demographic was all the same in the city. So it was interesting flying down to San Antonio for basic training and seeing all walks of life going into one area. So I grew up in cornfields, so that's kind of where we grew up. So
you said you grew up, you said pretty poor. Like, when did you know you were poor? Did you know, like, growing up? Like, when did you start kind of realizing, hey, we're not doing that great?
Yeah, it really didn't hit me till basic training, because that was my life up until then. We sometimes went out to Michigan to visit my brother, who was going through college out in Michigan State, and just a little bit different. Didn't really see much of anything. I got all the hand-me-down clothes from my older brothers, who were giants, by the way. Like, I didn't get my father's height or their height. I have a 5-foot Italian mother who I got that height, which is really nice for her to give that to me. But yeah,
thank you, Mom.
It kind of really hit home when we went down to when I went to basic training. And people were talking about like family vacations, like as we were, not wanting to die through basic training first couple of weeks. You really bonded really quickly with emotional bonding with basic training. I think I've heard that a couple times on your show, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. I still talk to some people who I went through basic training with now. We're pretty successful in the world.
So that area was it just the whole town that was kind of that way, or just your family that was?
No, it's whole town.
Yeah.
Whole town.
So it's kind of what you always knew.
Yeah. So we had a it's called Daniel Green Shoe Factory. So literally they made slippers that they sold on like QVC or the shopping network. I don't know what it was back then. So everyone worked there. And when everyone stopped working there, that's kind of when drugs kind of rolled into town. People had to drive pretty far to get to jobs. My oil and gas job. So we actually moved back after the military, and I can give you some of that info, how the city developed over that 10 years I was gone.
So you have a history of other family members being in the military?
Yeah. So my dad was airborne. He was in the Army.
Good man.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yep. Major knee damage from all the jumpies. But he was a Huey crew chief. Okay. So he worked on those a little bit. My great grandfather was in the Army, transitioned to the Army Air Corps, and then ended in the Air Force. So when the Air Force was created, so he was a little bit older. But all of our basic training photos look exactly the same.
Oh, cool.
And then my oldest son looks exactly like all of our basic training photos. It's pretty funny. Yeah. That's cool.
So you were achieving great grades, 45 out of 47 in high school.
That's not bad. I graduated for sure.
Yeah. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
And back then, I feel like, I don't know, for me, I feel like it's like the class, I don't ever remember talking about class ranking. It was just more like you just had that survey they used to make you fill out, and you're like, and then they were like, well, what do you want to be? And you'd be like, I want to be an astronaut. And they're like, well, you took this test and you should get into sanitation. That's what they're telling me. Like, it was like, I wish I could find those tests. Like they used to give these tests us. Like, and it would tell you like, and you'd have your top 3 jobs, and they'd be like, no, like, it just shouldn't do that. Like I feel like if you did that today, just what the parents would be so upset and just devastated that no, I mean, just because it was like, you look at it and talked about being like a blue collar stuff, but like I felt like it's a pretty accurate thing, right?
Oh, for sure. I don't remember taking that test.
Yeah, I'm a little older than you are though, so just a little bit.
All right, that's okay. You asked me like when I hit home about like having that money. My 2 older brothers got money for college, and when it came to me, like, hey, we're all done with it, so you got a couple options. Work in town, go to community college, or go in the military. So I had to sign documentation because I was too young to go in by myself. And I always remember my parents like almost getting like a drop down fist fight over it because my mom wouldn't sign the paperwork for it.
Yeah.
But
did she ever say why she didn't want you to do it?
No. It was okay as soon as I turned 18, but before it was a problem. Yeah. Probably because my dad's stories. He had some little wild stories. So they were pretty crazy.
Yeah. Did you what made you decide the Air Force though?
My grandfather said don't go into the Marines. One of his best friends died while being deployed to Vietnam. And then my dad said don't go in the Army. And then I had an uncle in the Navy. It was like, let's see what's left here. Let's see.
He doesn't seem very good. That Navy guy seems a little strange, but he's my uncle. But let's get the Air Force a shot.
Yeah. So I know I had some sort of undiagnosed ADHD. So I almost aced the ASVABs back then. So I got a huge score, and I actually got recruited. They were often the biggest bonus. I kind of didn't give I was going to swear. Can I swear in here?
That's how you can swear.
Yeah, I didn't give a shit about the money.
My dad will correct us afterwards if you say too much. If you swear too much,
I appreciate.
He's like my dad's like the FCC. He'll tell us that we swore too much, but it's okay.
Yeah, I didn't really care about the branch at the time because I didn't know any of the differences. They gave me the biggest bonus. Yeah. Because they weren't even like while I was in. I can tell a really good cross training story where I got rejected because of my wing commander because they weren't keeping crew chiefs. It literally destroys your body. Yeah. It's very aggressive, very physical, and you're usually by yourself lifting some heavy shit into that jet.
Right.
Yeah.
So what, like, do you remember what the bonus was?
Yeah, $6,000.
Well, that's a lot back then, right?
I had no money. Yeah, it was a lot. Marines, I think, were given $1,000, and the Navy was given like $2,000. So that was $6,000, and they don't tell you they split it up after you go in. So
So you joined right before September 11th, then, right?
6 days
before.
Yeah, 6 days. Yeah, September 5th, I went in.
So what was that like? You're going. You you got a path, you're going in there, you got $6,000, burn a hole in your pocket. You're getting one of your first airplane ride.
Yeah.
By the way, before like, what was the first airplane ride like? Because I'm perplexed by that. There's a guy at work, one of my competitors. He's never been. He's like 43 years old. He's never been on a plane.
Some people don't like to do that.
And I'm just like,
I mean, you're in a big steel box in the air. It's kind of wild. But yeah, it was okay. Like I don't remember focusing on it. I just remember like, holy shit, like we're going to basic training.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get off there and transfer to the bus, it starts. Like there's no hold time. It was kind of after MEPS. I think I went to MEPS there right before we went in, but it was okay. I don't remember anything about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just kind of nervous.
You've been on a plane since, I hope.
Yeah, hundreds of times. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Just a couple times. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, because I always love that. I've been flying before, and you see that person that's like freaking out. I'm like,
yeah.
Although lately it hasn't been great to be in planes and helicopters.
Oh my gosh.
So
no, that's crazy.
It goes back to my whole safety message. Though, do not get in a helicopter. I'm anti-helicopter. I will never get another helicopter in my life again.
No, I went in a couple just for some quick maintenance rides, and I don't know. Your stomach just goes anywhere it wants. It's not stable inside your body right now.
Well, it just shouldn't be flying. And then when anything goes bad, you fall.
Yeah.
And it's just like, especially like you don't do it when you go to Hawaii, you don't do it like sightseeing. Cause I just find also the people I know, the helicopter pilots, they're a little kind of crazy. And then like, I just know about, like, you would know even more than me about, I just go back to the days of how maintained military aircraft were supposed to be. And they still had problems. And I'm just like, are they really like this single engine Bell helicopter from they look like it was on Magna PI? Like have they really been taking care of that? And
I worked on 1970s in Kadena. Those are some of the oldest aircraft in our fleet besides the one at the training base. So I worked on 70s aircraft.
That's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, you were saying like getting like safe to fly. Yeah. And you call over because you're launching a jet and you can have a certain amount of leaks coming down, hydraulic fluid, brake fluid, oil, whatever you want. And you always have a stopwatch on it because you gotta figure it out before that jet goes. And you can always see, like, if you call it over on the radio, like, hey, I might have a red X, might have to stop this launch. Expediter always comes over and just kind of wipes it, and then waits for a second and wipes it. He's like, oh, you're good. That's fine. We're good. That's good. Let's go. It's fine. And then you talk about that relationship with your pilot. If you have a crappy pilot who is treating you like, a bag of balls, you can maybe open up one of the hydraulic brakes and they get a leak before it goes. So they know we have that kind of ability to
so they can't fly. Yeah, because I feel like that irritates when they can't. Like they're although my experience is different because I dealt with in the psyche, you deal with all the C-17 and C-130 pilots. So like I would always that was one of my biggest pet peeves is you'd have like 10 aircraft coming in and like you guys would fly them in broken. So like six would be fit, and the other 4 were broken. Yeah. And then they pretend like they were going to fix it at Pope. You know what I mean? Like, we're looking for something. And then, sometimes the 6th one would go bad. And like, I remember one time just saying like, hey, why don't we if this is broken on this one, why don't we move that over to this one?
Oh, we can.
Right. And then and this guy was like, you don't know nothing about aircraft planes. I was like, apparently not, but I'm just like, if you did that, 100 dudes could go jump out of the airplane instead of sit here for 5 hours. The guy was like, you don't know nothing about what we do. We cannot switch stuff over. I was like, whoa, okay.
Everybody relax.
Chill out. I'm like, actually, if we really wanted to, we could, and really nobody would know about it.
And we did all the time. Yeah. We call it a shitbird, but we had the record in Guam for consecutive number of flights because we just had one jet that was so broke. We just kept canning good parts into the bad jets that needed them. Yeah. And we just kept flying. So it happens all the time.
Sounds like military maintenance, but that's also like, I had it that these pilots didn't want to fly either. That was part of the whole thing of coming there. I just feel like they didn't. I mean, they could just go.
You have different mentalities for different pilots. One of my jets had a test pilot because every time you change your engines, you got to, do that whole cycle in the air. He came out, bushy hair over the ears, smoking a cigarette. And then when he came down, and we always, as soon as the pilot comes down, we go up, we put all the pins in so it doesn't egress on the ground. So you can't pull your ejection seat. There's like 15 cigarettes in his map case. So they're flying so high. I saw his oxygen dial at 100. So I don't know, math there. Like I do a lot of fire triangles at work. Like something's weird here.
Just doing whatever the hell he wants to do.
Yeah.
So you head down, you head off, and then when do you find out you're going to get assigned to the F-15?
So I went in open mechanical.
Okay.
I didn't want to do finance, but that was what I was privy to in my testing. I didn't even like working on things before. I didn't work on cars. Me and my buddy made a crash derby car when we were like 16, but I was like, that's it. And I remember your very first class going through tech school. They walk through a toolbox and they pull drawer by drawer out, crescent wrench, adjustable wrench. Because when I became an instructor, I understood why we did that. Because we had kids from New York City who I had to teach how to drive a manual tow tractor and tow a jet, and they don't have a license.
So all joking aside, though, you know, you're going in there, you don't have that, like, you're not the first person I've ever heard that goes in the military and doesn't have any interest in what they were doing. They were asked to be doing, but they're going to do it. So now you're not only, and it's not like you're working on like a truck, which is not a big, it's not a big deal, but you're now getting focused on working on aircraft, which is kind of a big deal, I'd say.
And like at
any point where you're like, what did I get myself into? Or was there a party who's like, I'm enjoying this?
So I actually liked it because it was pretty technical. We had technical orders to fix the entire jet. And there was like, if you have to, one of our training is actually going through a fault diagram. Like say you have an oil leak and this engine light's on. We actually have books where you can actually kind of just go through each fault, and it gives you a tree and you can figure out what's wrong with the jet. I love that part. The tools thing was a little weird up front, but once we got into the nitty gritty of the jet, like learning about hydraulic pressures, how to fix like airframe power plants, I actually liked it. I liked it mostly until we started working on them live when I got to Japan, and it was a little warm and a little bit different environment right out of high school.
Yeah, it gets different when you're out of the schoolhouse and really having to fix these. And
because I was literally everyone starts out on day shift when you're new, and then you go to either nights for maintenance and then swings for servicing. So I got to do all three of those. Way different life on the flight line during those times. But
what's your favorite of those? The service, the maintenance?
So I liked swing shift the best because you got into the nitty gritty. I learned more a month on swing shift than a year on days, because you actually do all that maintenance. On days, you're launching and recovering and doing inspections. On night shift, you do all the maintenance. That's where all like the surly people come in with all the dirty uniforms and like just smoking, hairs all unkempt because there's no officers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a different life. I liked it because you didn't get bothered. So you could work on your jet. Like, hey, you do your transfer with your day shift. Like, hey, all the shit's broken. Okay, cool. And then you get your toolbox, roll it out, and you get all your stuff ready.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. All joke around. I mean, it is you're not having to deal with all the BS.
No tours.
No one's coming around just checking on you. You're able to do your job, and I can see the appeal of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was cool over because the only other place I've been was Texas. Then I go to Panama City Beach for follow-on training. I go home. You asked me when I knew I was going to work on F-15s. I think it was the last week in basic. Said, hey, you're going to tech school for this. And they didn't even tell you what airframe it was. Just gave you a 2A, 3, 5, 3A. Like, cool. I don't know what this number is. Like, what is that? Right. So we all had like an hour to look it up in the book. And us crew chiefs all went together because we were kind of dorming together, and we just stuck together in that gang.
And then you just find out that you're going to the F-15 eventually. Like that number means something.
Yep. Yeah. So first weekend tech school. So there was no gap in between basic training and tech school. You take the bus after graduation, you go to tech school. Then you get off the bus, you go through your dorms. Like, hey, 500, you're going to run, and then we're going to go to tech school. And I think it was maybe halfway. It was about a 6-month tech school, halfway through a year assignment. And mine said Japan. I didn't even know. I'd looked it up just to kind of see exactly where Okinawa was. I never heard of Okinawa before. And a little tiny island right below Japan.
Yeah.
And I remember getting my first, it was in Panama City. I got my flight path over there, and it was 28 hours to get to that island. I said, that's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. But it was cool. As soon as you walk off onto the island, you get hit by a brick wall of humidity. So
yeah. So before you left for basic training, growing up in New York, what other states had you been to? You said you went to Michigan. I mean, have you had you been to like Florida or nowhere?
No, Michigan to visit my brother. We drove through a little bit of Ohio, and then we went to Canada quite a bit, just because it was right up the road from us. I remember going Toronto a little bit. Excuse me. And then that was about it.
Yeah.
Not too much. We didn't. That was probably once every 5 years we went for a little thing. So
yeah. So really quickly, you're not only you're seeing Texas, Florida. Now you're living in another country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what do you like? The humidity. Like what are you thinking when you
you
the humidity hits you? Like what are you thinking? Like
as soon as you walk off, it's hard to breathe because of how thick it was. And I landed there in June. I can't remember what it was. June 2002. Went over there. It was pretty warm. It was pretty warm. But it was funny because when you get to your first base, no matter where in the globe you are, you go through First Term Airman Center. So they're all the same airmen. It doesn't matter what the job they are. They're the first. This is your very first base, and you go through the same kind of orientation, like how to actually survive in the military out of tech school. So I thought that was pretty good. It was pretty nice.
I never heard of that.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed until they said, "Hey, report here in the morning," and they told you about it. They don't tell you about it any other time until you show up.
I think the Air Force is like I've never heard of like. I know the Army's not doing that. It was just like you just show up and
you just go to work.
You just figure it out. Yeah. You're like, be here, be there.
Well, it was scary. The first
don't do this, don't do that, and
yeah. The first briefing you get is here's all the bugs on the island, here's all the venomous animals on the island, and here's what can hurt you. And then they always give examples of Marines, like so. Yeah, when you because they have I think they have 3 bases on the island. There's small bases up and down. And I always say, hey, every other Friday, you're going to see about 4,000 people with backpacks on. That's the Navy. They're docking their ship and they're walking around the island. So every other Friday, we didn't go out. And then the Marines always had a curfew because they either were doing bad things.
Yeah, we joke about that, but like, there's been some very like
bad
awful
things.
Shit that's happened. Okinawa, it's caused some very like it is the Marines. I think pretty much 80%, 90% of the time, it's falling behind, but some like heavy shit that's had like the Okinawa people like wanting the military out. So
all the time.
All joking aside, it's been some pretty bad stuff.
And they'd have like 6 p.m. curfew every single day, and then you see all the other branches go out because they would. I mean, I don't classify all. I have a lot of Marines who are friends, but they were. Well, that's
I like I just say though, like, but
that was their interim spot after deployments.
Yeah.
So that's their halfway mark. They're gonna come off for a couple of weeks, and they're like, hey, here's your R&R. And someone went a little crazy. Yeah,
it's not the same thing. I kind of equate the same thing as Korea too. If you go up to like the DMZ, and it's crazy there too as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it just depends on where you're at, and what can happen when you put a bunch of young people with alcohol in another country. With a lot of alcohol and a lot of other negative things to do. What possibly
When we get into the timeline, I can give you a good story on how I got my nickname Martyniuk in Korea sometime as well.
All right.
That was great. I didn't add a note in there for that, but it's a good one.
We'll have to talk about that one.
Yeah.
We'll definitely will.
We got shirts and everything.
Talk a little bit about the F-15, like what the people that know Strike Eagle, right?
Yep. Strike Eagle.
Still operating.
Still out there. Yep. I think
what's its mission again? I always forget. Mainly.
We had one of the best radars out there.
It's air to air though, right? Or no?
So it used to be before like the 22 came out and the 35 came out. Those are the primary air to airs, but the radar is still some of the best. So you could shoot pretty far out and hit your target. Yeah. But air to air, it had some good capabilities. The age was getting so high. I always remember having some kind of airframe modification that needed to be done, and cracks all over the place. When they upgraded the engines from the 100 to the 220s, we were having cracks all over the place, but the pilots loved it and they could push it back and go back, just code 3 all the time. So.
Yeah, we've had some Navy crew chief on, but I think just listening and growing up and listening to people talk, like all the pilots have different like personalities. Like what's the personality of like an F-15 pilot? What are they? What would you say? How would you categorize an F-15 Strike Eagle driver?
Oh, man, this is tough. There was I'd say like, this is tough. Almost like going to get tea on Sunday service. Do you know what I mean? Like a tea service. Those kind of really. This is hard to classify all in one. I don't know. You had 50% cool pilots and you had 50%, dicks, and maybe 1% were female. Like the whole time I was crew chiefing, only saw one female pilot for F-15s. Couldn't tell you why. But what it does to your body is really crazy though. So they're normally really cool coming out. When they're done flying, you can see the stress put upon their body. I had a 3-star general on one of my jets one time who I would literally put his golf clubs in the back seat of his jet, strap him in. He'd fly up to mainland Japan, play golf, and then come back. And we'd have to physically go up with a couple of people with our aircraft ladders and pull him out and bring him down because his body's so overused.
Yeah,
so good use of resources. I don't know if you heard that.
But we don't talk about that kind of stuff. That's, you always hear that and you're like, oh, it's normal. You're like, not really. But
I got a ton of 3-star coins from that guy. So he never remembered me.
How was your golf around the golf? But so, this 02, so this is after, this is after 9/11, the wars are kicking off. What's your guys' mission in Okinawa? Are you guys still, are you guys in the fight at that point, or
we are in the fight? We had about every 6-month type of some sort of deployment, either Bagram. Our unit, we had the 44th and the 67th. The 44th supported Korea a ton. Okay. So I was in Korea so much, I got a non-consecutive overseas tour, which means I spent more than 100 days in a year there because we were there like every other weekend.
Yeah.
North Korea was doing something stupid. We'd land, we'd literally sit there on alert for a week or two, and then we'd come back.
Yeah.
And we just do exercises with the South Koreans. So we were there a ton, either Gwangju, Osan, Kunsan. We were all 3 of those bases all the time.
Yeah, I always love the Korea stories because I remember going there and I knew I was going to 2ID.
Yeah.
And so we were at the officer placement there, they're getting ready to send everybody out. And this E8 comes in. He's like, oh, who here is going to 2ID? And we all raise our hand, and then they're like, who here thinks they're going somewhere else? And a bunch of guys raise, they're like, hate to tell you, you're going to 2ID.
Yeah.
Needs of the Army. And you'd see these you'd see a lot of people have an emotional breakdown about it. And, there's actually a CW3 that ended up getting in a lot of trouble because he threw a big fit about it. It was supposed to be going down to Seoul and threw a big fit, and they sent him up to to 2ID to be a battalion maintenance tech, and he wasn't very happy about it. So, that whole thing created your whole world. Because when we got there too, it was those alerts, they start off so quick. You're like, what's going on?
Immediately.
And you're like, what, you get there and the unit's like, oh my gosh, the North Koreans did this. And you're like, what does that mean? They're like, well, all that stuff would, ramp up. And
when we're on alert, we literally sit there with the pilot kind of in the same room together. Your jet's unpinned. They can literally run up and get in and we can start it and go. So we were on alert that whole time. You don't sleep for that amount of time that you're over there. Gwangju is really funny. We get to that base.
Where's that at?
Southern tip.
Okay.
We get there and a northern tip. Oh shit. I can't tell you.
No.
Oh my God.
North. It's gotta be south.
Yeah. Because Osan was closer to the DMZ. Yeah. So we get there and we see a guy, coming out end of runway, and we see him at the little shop to grab some snacks. And then later that day, the bar opened, it was the same guy. And we're like, where is everybody? He's like, oh, we run this base with 4 people. And that's just those 4 people doing all those services. It was really scary. One of those photos I sent you was from Korea with all the snow. And it was -30. And then you go in your dorm room and it's 95 degrees.
Yeah.
And then you have to sleep with the window open and you have snow accumulation. It was cool.
Yeah, Korea's a great. My favorite thing is I love Korean food. So that was the best thing in the whole entire world. I love Korean food. That's all I can say. So I was in heaven with that.
We were in
the weather is awful. It's raining. It's fucking super cold. You start to really
Seattle almost.
Yeah, you start to realize holy crap, this is
And it seemed I never remember going there without snow. I don't know what was going on, but we were over there all the time. And jets going from a tropical environment, if you know anything about, hydraulics and temperatures, your seals shrink when it gets cold. So we land in Korea.
It's just the seals. It's not just the seals that shrink when you get cold.
No, everything gets shrunk. Everything gets shrunk when you're over there.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. Yeah.
Well, that's funny because we got issued cold weather gear, and it was maybe 80 pounds for our bag, for our pants and our jacket and our gloves. And I don't know if you know much about working on jets, but you have to be super articulate working on like screws and stuff.
Yeah.
And we had these gloves with the fingers were maybe 3 inches taller than your actual fingers, and it was all down, so you had to take them off. Second you touch it, you're latched onto it. So that was a lot of fun. But as soon as you land in Korea, all your stuff starts leaking. Yeah. So every time in the morning, you had to let it get cold. You had to service all your hydraulics, all your oil, because it was all on the ground. And back then, before I got into environmental services, that was perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's
Perfectly
those are
fine.
things you just don't know about. Until
Even
you really
in
get into it.
Japan, you were it was not the best.
Oh god,
Not the best.
I remember we had to jettison like a whole HEMT fuel of JP8.
Yeah.
And so we had to get it out, and we're like pump it out. And so the guy's like, pumping stuff, and we're like, dude, just fucking get it out. He's like, we need to get it out fast. Like, so he is like shooting, jet fuel just out of the back of his helmet. It's going like 7 feet, just like a stream of it.
Yeah.
And he's like smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, and it's not, people know it's not flammable, but he's like, and I'm like, dude, he's like, sir, if we were in the United States, he's like, we would, do you know how much trouble we'd be in right now?
Yeah.
He's like, and if we were in California, I think we go to prison for life.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to enjoy this. And I mean, it was just, and I think about that too. I was like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that. No. That's fine. 2,500 gallons. Yeah, it's no big deal.
Well, we should talk about the PACT Act at some point today. Do you know what that is? If you were exposed to like burn pits,
gotcha.
They gave me a list of everything we were exposed to in Okinawa, and that JPA was at the bottom of that list.
Yeah. So all that's you think about. I looked at that the other day and all the stuff but at the time you don't think about it, right? There's all these things like I
had a JPA bath one time because I was just relieving a little pressure from the wing with a bucket, and that bucket filled up fast. Yeah, it came right down to me. Covered in hydraulic fluid. My wife tells an excellent story. We usually carpool to work, so we lived in a cul-de-sac in Okinawa, in like 4x4 units, and we'd all go out to the car at the same time. We'd all come back at the same time with our coveralls, and we literally have to strip naked. If your wife was pregnant or you're trying to get pregnant, we are covered in benzos. You have JP8 all over your hydraulic fluid, oil all over your skin, because they didn't require any PPE at all when we were over there. They're like, hey, here's your headphones. Here's your ear foamies go under your headphones. Zero enforcement, no gloves, just all over your body, the entire shift. So you come home, you strip naked, you put it in the washer, and then you just get in the shower.
Yeah, I love that when you just were talking about the equipment that they give you, like the cold weather equipment, because that was always the thing that was like, you'd see like all this stuff from like North Face and all the stuff that works, and like the military has all this shit that doesn't even work.
No,
right? And it's like
gold.
And then it tied into the whole thing. I used to have this huge fun thing about it is like PT gear. Like the Army would they're asking somebody else to make them, like Nike, New Balance, they make this already. Why don't we just have them make it for us? But it always just it didn't fit right. I mean, it was like you could always get
my balls fell out of my shorts.
It
was terrible shorts. It wasn't good for anybody.
Yeah, those I don't know what the new ones are like, but yeah, it was very different of because they didn't fit, so you cut them out. There's a lot of stuff that was going on, but the cold weather stuff, all that kind of stuff, you would think like
you hear about like military spec.
Yeah,
and after being in the military, I don't put too much stock into military spec stuff.
Yeah, there's some stuff that's like,
come on.
I just but you do see it now. Like you see a bunch of things that have changed, right? Like that's one of the things I always look at. If you're looking at pictures or something, you see, all the things have changed. Like the headgear they have now for the active headgear, to drown out noise and all that kind of stuff. You see all this stuff. Yeah, it's like holy cow. They're finally like they're like holy cow. It's like why didn't we have that? You know what I mean? But the cold weather gear was always like you get that in the old wool. Yeah, like I remember, like when I came in, it was the green liner gloves and the leather gloves, and then if you got wet after like 5 minutes, it was almost worthless. Yeah, and the strap that never worked. It was just like
just dangling in the wind.
Yeah, and then we'd always get yelled at because we started wearing flight gloves, Nomex gloves, and then they'd all be mad because you can't wear those because you're not in a you're not a pilot or you're not in a tank. You're just like, oh my god! But these gloves actually work. They stay on your hands, whatever. But it's always funny to see how you always think how great your things are, but then you're like,
because as soon as any water hit any of your cold weather gear is done.
Yeah,
like you're all do your thanks for coming. It's not going to dry out either.
I still have old Gore-Tex though. I still bust that out for the winter time.
I have a set of Gore-Tex from that. I can fit a leg in it. I think. I don't think I can close it. I don't think I can get any of that closed. So.
And I still have the original, like when the real sleeping bags came out, the sleeping bag systems. Yeah, that's pretty legit. I mean, I kept that. I don't know if I was supposed to keep it. Yeah. But it's been a while, so I still have it.
Does it still have continuity? Like, is it still together?
It still works, yeah. That's a great little thing. I mean, when they started, before it was the old green that with the down feathers in it, and you're just like, this doesn't work. But we could talk all day about that.
So much gear.
So Okinawa, that's where you meet your wife. But it's kind of interesting story. You meet, she's not in the military when you meet her.
No. So her dad was a heavies crew chief, section chief. So we just happened to meet. So that first term airman center, One of my friends wanted to go see one of her friends, and I had a car. So that's kind of how that happened. So we go to like a little barbecue, and we're there, and we're only like a year, a little more than a year apart. So both super, super young. And that's just how it happened. It just repetition kept going. You know what I mean? And then we kind of just shared a similar. So she grew up military. She spent about 12 years in mainland Japan, and then I think 5 or 6 years in Okinawa. So I speak more Japanese than she does, but she's there way longer, way longer. But yeah, that's just
we're not keeping score or anything. But
no, I'm obviously winning.
So she's a dependent. You know, how long? Like, when did you guys know it was pretty serious? When did you start?
So we probably dated a year and a half, and then it was about that time where they were about to leave because her dad was PCSing, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to just keep going?" And we did. So we actually flew back to New York and was going to have a small wedding, and we just ended up eloping, and she came back to Okinawa with me. So it's kind of how it happened.
That's what started.
Yeah.
So you guys were married together in Okinawa for a little bit?
Yeah. So we probably there 2.5 years. Then we got married. We actually lived off base for a little bit, which was awesome. A ton of crazy stories with off base housing. Because when you're on base and a hurricane comes in or a typhoon comes in, you're locked down. You're 3 days. You're eating MREs every single meal for 3 days. Power's out. Off base is a little loosey goosey, but you always hear about the Marines who die going off base and getting caught in those big. It looks like jacks. They're wave stoppers for typhoons. They always kind of get in trouble with those. That's why the rest of their branches kind of stay put and locked in during typhoons. But off base, we always had this old lady walking like a 8,000-pound bull. She's probably like 4.5 feet tall, 140 years old. Just walking a bull with a ring in his nose.
104.
They were so funny. Yeah, it was cool. We had a great time.
Rain or shine.
Yeah, but we were
monsoon or not. I
was flip flops every single day in Okinawa. Awesome food, and you got used to it pretty quickly. Just the island life.
So did you miss New York at all?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Once you kind of branch out and see what else is out there, you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I was there for 18 years. Like I was stuck in that one spot. I just didn't have access or knowledge to kind of go out. Right. The internet wasn't a thing back then, right? Yeah. We had Apple IICs in school. Yours were older than mine, I think, but
I don't think we had a computer.
No. Yeah, so like, let's Google these other locations.
Yeah, that's all the things you talk about now with like
it's so funny.
College visits. It's like, look on the internet. You're like,
yeah,
you got a brochure, and you're like,
yeah.
Hey, can we go drive there? How far away is that? 12 hours? We're not driving to
Yeah. I'll tell you how old it was when I graduated tech school and I was going to follow on. They printed me out MapQuest.
Yeah.
That we used. We kept it on the dash of the car.
I kind of like the old school mapping though, man. That was like a good job. Like no, come on, dude. My dad was like a champ at that. He's over there. He would have all the things highlighted out. It was like a big deal. I feel like that was like now. I don't think I've gotten lazy too. Like when people start giving me directions, I'm just like, just give me the address. Like, I mean, it's like, people are like, you just go down, like I could, if you had I can't even name roads anymore. It's like, like go down here, right? I'm like, can you just give me the address? Like, yeah, but all you got to do is just go down and I'm like, what is the fucking address? Like, or just tell me it's by something. That's a better way too. Like, don't tell me, sir.
Give me a landmark.
Yeah, direct. Yeah. Like if you tell me it's by something, I can find it. But people are, you just wonder now if that all cause it actually happened to me recently. I went to my 30-year reunion for college in Vermont, went to Vermont, and I knew I was I got kind of cocky. Like I kind of know where I'm at. I've only been there twice in 30 years, but I was like, I know where I'm at. So, and I was like, I just want to know how far I was because we're meeting some people, and I turn off my GPS, and like, how they'll if you lose in Vermont, you lose it. Yeah. In Vermont, like it goes away. So I turn it off and I'm like, holy shit. And so I'm trying to get a signal. I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
Where I think I'm at, I kind of panic a little bit and I just drive by where I should have turned. So like if you've ever been to Vermont, like where it's pretty rural. I'm just like, there's nothing around. The GPS isn't coming on. And old me would have probably drove for another like 40 minutes before I did it. But I'm like, I got 20 minutes lost, and I finally see a post office, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God. So I pull in the post office, and I'm like, I'm trying to get to Norwich, and she's like, she starts looking. She's like, oh, she has an iPad. She's like, oh, I'll pull it up, and I'm like, well, can I like can I get on your Wi-Fi? Can I get on your Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I can't. You can't get on. This is government Wi-Fi. I can't get on there. And I'm like, she's like, and so she's like pulling up like Norwich, and it's like an hour and something away. I'm like, Norwich University. She's like, we said Norwich. I'm like, yeah, nobody wants to go to Norwich, Vermont. I'm like, we're talking about Norwich University. Like, so I literally and she's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And I'm literally like, just pull up the directions, and I take the pictures of the direction. She's like, well, how's that going to help you? I'm like, well, it says my turn is like 3 miles up there. I'm going to look at the odometer, and like when I get 3 miles, then I'm going to be looking for this turn. And she looked like super stressed.
Yeah.
And
I'm like,
I'm going to be okay. And I think she was like, this guy's going to die. I'm like, I'm not. It's Vermont. I mean, I had, I had heady topper in the car. I had plenty of heady topper. I had plenty, stuff to survive. But it's. You think about some of those places when if it ever went out, like, I'd kind of be screwed now. You know what I mean? I was.
There'll be no way. Yeah. I'm too distracted.
I can get home, get to work.
Yeah, for sure.
Important stuff.
I know where the circle is, so we're okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So it's no GPS when you're traveling overseas either, and that time either. Yeah. So you were still map questing on the island, and like 30% of the signs were in English for some of the major landmarks. So you're looking for certain symbols, and you're like, oh shit. When we lived off base, we couldn't find our house a couple times. We had to turn back.
Then there's a language barrier. You're like, oh gosh.
Well, it was nice because you don't talk to the old people. You find a child and you talk to that child, and they'll give you information. Yeah. So really bizarre. I remember my wife the first time, because she kind of grew up in Japan. She picked a child up in a mall, like randomly. Like, who the fuck is that? What are you doing? Like, I'm just saying hi. It's like, oh my god, we're this kid's parents. And as soon as they walk, they have those little squeaky shoes, and they're walking around by themselves, no supervision.
Yeah,
because when you go to jail in Japan, they don't give you food. So if your family's not bringing you food, you're done. So
I didn't know that.
That's how they had it. Well, that's what they told us. I didn't verify it.
Yeah, you might want to look at the internet on that. I don't even know if that's true or not. If somebody could verify that, that seems like somebody would have been complaining by that by now. But
it was just a weird thing that they were used to doing.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It is always interesting to go to other countries how the young people can speak English.
Yeah.
It's always
but in Korea, everyone spoke English.
Yeah, I felt
we
like
were in kind of major cities though at that point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of places I've been, like a lot of people do. I mean, especially like a certain age, I think, like, you know what I mean? Like the place I've been, like most of the young people speak it. I mean, it's not great, but they can understand it and help you, like if you're lost or something like that, which is always helpful. Except for France. I feel like they don't help you at all, but that's a whole different conversation. But so you're in Okinawa how long total?
It was 4 years, 5 years.
So you get ready to leave the little tiny island. Do you get to choose where you're going next, or did you?
That's funny. Yeah. No. They gave me orders. Okay, your tour is up. Actually, no. I applied to be an instructor. Because a lot of guys. So I spent so much time in Korea. A lot of guys who after Okinawa they're going to year remotes in Korea. I'm like, I don't want that. I'm going to apply to be an instructor. I got my first degree already while I was over there taking night school. And then I got it. So I was enlisted for 6 years, and they're like, hey, if you take this assignment, you have to extend for 2 years. You're not re-enlisting, you're extending. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I'm staying, I'm a lifer. We're going to stay in. And Adrian was pregnant with our first son, Nate. And then I got the approval for that process. And then I was able to go to be an instructor. So I got to go to Texas. Here's some shitty things they don't tell you. When we got to Okinawa, my house was furnished. That's my first base. When we got to Texas, here's your house, unfurnished, no money, super poor.
Yeah.
We had a futon and a recliner in our entire house for like a couple of months.
So those days of just
nothing.
Yeah.
And I also didn't know cola was a thing. So we had a ton of cola in Japan because it's so expensive.
Right.
That stopped.
Yeah, for those people who know cost of living allowance.
Yeah. And then my spousal support money also in Okinawa, all that stopped. So we got cut by 3/4 payment, and we're living like terrible for the next 5 years.
Yeah, and then also the one thing they don't tell you for like the Air Force in a lot of the places is like you're now only certain places you go because you're on that aircraft, right? You only have places, you it's not like those F-15s everywhere, so you kind of get only certain places you can go. It's kind of one of those things you.
Yeah, you're gonna either
one of the bad things about the Air Force. I think you hear about.
Yeah. Because we had friends with 16s. I think 16s had cooler bases, but they were mainly in Japan. They were all kind of different places around the country. We were in Idaho. North Carolina, North Dakota, really pretty up there. And then Panama City Beach and Wichita Falls, basically. Oh, and then Baytown, California.
Yeah.
But I don't go in that state, so I can't.
So you come back to the States. So what's that? That's, all joking aside, like coming back,
probably one of the worst
yeah,
experiences.
Yeah, coming back, like not having, cash and.
Yeah. Didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
We had a whole support mechanism in Okinawa. We'd get together every single night with friends.
Yeah.
Because you're all over there at that same age. A couple people have younger kids, but a lot didn't. And then we almost got stuck in Japan because of she came over 8 months pregnant. So we almost had the baby in Japan. So we're like, hey, we got released a little bit early, so we'd go back. And didn't have any support mechanism at all when we got to the base. So we were just kind of there, had to buy a car that very first day. That was kind of interesting with the interest rates because they take advantage of the airmen at the base. It's a training base.
Yeah.
And it was a whole different lifestyle coming back to the States. So we basically didn't leave the base. We might go down to Dallas once every quarter.
Yeah.
And kind of growing up with that family unit, they don't teach you about money, how to manage money. So you just, use what you think you have.
Yeah. You're like, oh.
Yeah. I remember kind of working for Amazon, like my first paycheck was kind of like when we really started kind of bringing some money in. And I remember telling Adrian, like, hey, we have $16 this week for groceries. So, and the boys were like 1 year old.
Yeah.
That was crazy times.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things to talk about that. So, number one, I think I don't think we've talked about a lot, but that when you PCS, like that's, that's a, that's what we're talking about, changes duty station. You leave, like, that's what people always ask, like, oh my gosh, all my brother was in the Army. Do you know John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt? And you're like, do you realize how big it is? But like, as big as it is, like when you PCS, like you could go to a place where you don't know anybody. Like, so like when I went to Korea, I didn't know anyone. Like, I mean, and at that point I was a captain in the Army, but like, I literally didn't know anyone there. I didn't know anybody that was there. The only guy I knew was down in Seoul. Yeah. So, that's as a captain getting in there. So I've been in the Army for a little bit, but like, that first, like when you first, first duty assignment, that's why I was surprised you said that. That's a lonely time, especially where, when I, 2001 was different. 94 was different. Like you were like literally just showing up and you didn't know anybody. Like, and it's in like all your friends that you had before, they're scattered all over the world. And it gets lonely really fast. I mean, it can be a lonely time that I think a lot of people don't talk about or pretend like it doesn't bother you, but it is kind of nerve wracking to like not know anyone.
Yeah. So it was super stressful getting out of Okinawa. So one thing I love that the military did, you got signed like a battle buddy, I guess you'd call it. Yeah. They picked you up from the airport, they brought you to your dorm room and they helped you settle in and they stayed with you literally hip to hip for like 3 days just to make sure you're adjusted. Yeah. Cause it's a 16-hour time difference in Okinawa. And then they're kind of like your mentor on site. Luckily, I had somebody who was just got married, so they're pretty normal. We hung out with them quite a bit. But if that support mechanism were there, you're all by yourself after being with people for 18 years.
Yeah, my battle buddy was my platoon sergeant who, when he found out I was there, I had I can't remember what it was called, where you PCS and you have all these days off to find housing, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And Sergeant Mason's like, did you have an apartment? And I was like, yeah, I did. He's like, well, then what are you going to do? I'm like, I have these days off. Like I have leave. And he's like, well, you need to get back here. You need to get to know your unit. We're going to the field next week. And I was just like, holy shit. So I was like, we are. And he's like, what else are you going to do? Do you have a family? And I was like, no. And I'm like, he's like, you have a place to live? I'm like, he's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I guess I'm coming. I guess I'm not going to be on leave next week. He's like, that's a good idea. You shouldn't be on leave. So I show up to my unit. Just my company commander's like, what are you doing here? What was it called? I can't remember what the league was. Yeah. And I'm like, well, my platoon's going to the field this week. And he's like, just like looked at me and he was just like, who told you that? And I was like, sorry, Mason. He's like, God, he's like, and so he goes, you didn't need to talk to Sergeant Mason about that. So I'm like, we're not going to the field. He's like, what the fuck else are we gonna do? So like, you're gonna sit in your apartment and do nothing. He's like, exactly, this is what you came to do. And I was just like, we need to talk about our level of trust here because I thought we were doing this. He's like, look, you didn't need those days off. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
you're fine.
But as you get older, you get a family, that becomes a big deal. The time to like, because that's what people don't realize. Like, moving moving to another base, you got to like reestablish your family, schools as they get older, find a place to live.
And we were pretty lucky because the boys, we only moved from Okinawa to Texas. That was our move. And we didn't have shit to bring with us because they furnished our apartment.
Yeah.
We had a couple of knickknacks. If we did have furniture, it would have taken 60 days by boat to get to the apartment. So even if that happened, still wouldn't have furniture. So it was so shocking that when we showed up and we had that same kind of like base response. They brought us to the house and everything. I'm like, oh, cool. When's the furniture get delivered? And that's when it kind of sunk in a little bit. And they said, no, that's all on you, bud.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, can I get a ride to the car dealership so I can go buy a car? He's like, oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
That was our onboarding. It was pretty unique. Yeah. That was super stressful because Adrian was literally about to have a baby in a month. So
how'd you guys deal with that stress? You're moving, she's, first kid on the way. You're in a new state, you're starting a new job. Like, what was that like for both of you guys?
So we were still pretty young at that point. I think we handled it pretty well. I was more pissed around the time where they just didn't set us up for really good success around moving to that base. And I even asked my first shirt, my first sergeant, it's like, hey, like, does anybody tell anybody about this? Is anybody aware that this is happening? Because I wasn't. He's like, oh, you should have got a briefing packet. And I said, well, I didn't, and that's where we are.
Yeah.
So he was cool enough to bring us around to get some furniture, but other than that, it was kind of odd. I knew one person there who was a fellow instructor, and we kind of went up the ranks together, did our instructor training. But that was kind of about it. But you lock in pretty hard with that family when you spend 10 hours a day with them.
Yeah.
Very quickly. I only had 4 days to move into the house, and then I went to work.
Yeah.
So it's pretty quick.
It's not like you have a lot of time. As you move along, it gets a little bit better, but
yeah.
Yeah, we moved. But the one thing they're good at is moving you, though. When you do get your stuff, I mean, they
so fast.
They can get you. I mean, you're like your shit
so
is gone.
Fast.
Man. It's like like pack it up, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. You're like,
after 5 years there, they packed us up in a half a day, packed the truck, and the next day, and then they were up to New York.
Yeah, that is the one thing I'm like. Move, like if you've never had a military move, I mean, they pack everything for you. There's not like, I mean,
stickers, and I still have stickers on some of my stuff.
That's cool when you find like an old sticker that's like from somewhere. You're like, put your
still got it.
But there's something to be said. Like when I went to Korea, my wife went and lived back in New York, and so we like put all our stuff in storage, and that's what like we're for like a year, and you're like, oh my god, is our stuff going to come back? And and you're like, where is it? I mean, it was in some storage area in Virginia for like a year, and you're just like, we're never getting this stuff back. And you do it comes back. It's all,
Well, we had a one box from Okinawa come back over because I brought my saxophone from high school, and just a couple other like clothing and a couple pieces of furniture. And on the way back, our container cracked, and my entire saxophone got pitted, and they gave me $30 for it. It was like a $4,000 saxophone. Yeah, I was really excited about that. So they don't really take care of you after the thing.
Yeah, that's a whole other part of like of the travel. Like you have the people that would do yourself moves like DIY where you can make money. People would be like
that's way
like
too much stress.
Like a friend of mine, Pete Johnson. He always did that, and he was always convinced that I'll pack it, I'll make money off because you can make money. But I'm like, but dude, like. People come in and literally like you don't have to do anything. You just got to make sure they don't pack like your car keys,
You're just
like anything that you need, right? You give them Gatorade, soda, let them smoke. Right? Yeah, they pack and it's gone, right? Like I mean, but and then you just but when they like something gets broken, that was a whole process of like
just pain in the balls.
Yeah, just trying to get the value of it and
and then it was weird moving from Texas to New York because all of my weapons became illegal, so that was weird.
That's if I had it. That's not a good state to bring guns back.
That's not good at all.
No, not at all.
Nope.
So you're doing the instructor thing for quite some time. You're down in Shepherd, Air Force Base.
Yep.
So you talked earlier that you at this point you were going to still make it a career. What changed that?
Oh yeah. So as you're an instructor, when the base units deploy, they ask for augmentees. So if you like have a background in finance, you go work in finance. I volunteered to be a security forces because I thought it'd be fun. And I actually loved it. You only worked 15 days a month. That was pretty cool. And when I was about to re-enlist, so I hit year 8.5 right there. And I went up for my re-enlistment and they're like, well, just wait like a month because you're about to get orders. And you can get special bonuses if you go to certain spots. So like if we go back to Okinawa, I get another bonus. Like, cool. So boys were 1 and 2 at the time, almost 1 and 3. And I got my first orders were to Korea remote. And I said, well, I have this non-consecutive overseas tour, which means I did more than a year in Korea as I was over there for that 5 years. Like, well, that doesn't count. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to, leave the kids for a whole year. We were still poor. Like, nothing's keeping us there except for longevity. So they canceled my orders. I got to cancel one throughout my career, so I canceled it. And I was due to re-enlist on a Friday, and I got my orders on a Wednesday, and it was a fucking Korea year remote. Kunsan now, right, way close to the DMZ. Like, oh my God, what the hell? So I go to my squadron commander, who is an old Marine. That ties into the story because he was a dick. And he said, sorry, that's what you got to do. And I said, well, I did my tech sergeant test. So I was about to sew on my E6 in like 2 years because I got it in my first round. And I said, I've never had a mark on my record. I have accommodation medals. I have airman medals. I want to stay in, but I'm not going to stay in if I'm going to a year remote in Korea. I'm not doing a whole year with the boys. They're too funny. So we out processed in 2 months with nothing up in upstate New York. And we got out and drove up north with nothing, no job, nothing. That was pretty shitty.
Yeah. What was going on in your mind for that?
I didn't even know if we were going to make it. Our family support was really crappy because my brothers are kind of messes. So they took up a majority of that entire care. So we were still on our own. Her parents were in that same kind of boat. They were going through a divorce. They were just shitty. So we were still on our own. I think that's kind of why we're still together now. It's been 22 years this year. Just because of how crappy our support mechanisms were, we just learned to do it ourselves. So that's kind of what kept us going. But moving up to upstate New York, we just rented a house, and that's kind of where the journey began for like the safety career and like starting stuff out. I worked in a machine shop my first job out, and I luckily had 2 months of leave saved up. That's kind of the only thing that saved us.
Yeah.
So
let's take a pause for pour. You ready for a pour?
Yeah.
And we'll get into that.
Yeah.
The deep. He's like, yeah,
I'm ready now.
Like, I'm ready. So he's ready to roll. So we didn't talk about this last week. It was literally last week. So we'll talk about one of my favorite distilleries, Heaven Hill. So we're gonna have a Elijah Craig 94 proof barrel pick from Opal Grill and Tavern, Grand Theft BC 520. Heaven Hills in Bardstown, Kentucky, is a private American owned and operated distillery since 1935. So one of the few that are still American owned and one of the few that are still family run. It's actually the 7th largest alcohol supplier in the U.S. and the 2nd largest holder of bourbon whiskey inventory in the world. It's the largest independent family owned and operated producer of distilled spirits in the United States, and the only large family owned distillery in Kentucky. It produces some iconic brands: Heaven Hill, Evan Williams, Elijah Craig, which will have Old Fitzgerald, Larceny, Henry McKenna, all the great ones. And so in 2016, they reached these bottles were, they had the small batch before this, but they redesigned them in 2016, and they started doing some barrel pick offerings as well. The small batch used to be the only private barrel select you could get. They went to, you see them now, the barrel proof ones, but I still love going back to these because of, a 94 proofer. The price is always right. You can never go in, and some of them get pretty old. I mean, I have some ones that are still like almost 10, 11 years old. This one is 9 years old, like I said, 94 proof. And it's always like all the Elijah Craig is 78% corn, 10% rye, and 12% malted barley. So it's one of my favorite ones. So I'll give you a pour. You want to hand it over there? Cool. Yeah.
Have you had their Heaven Hill grain into glass?
I've had a little bit of them. Yeah, I'm not too wild about the price of them. So
that's $100. Like, it's not I was gifted it. I wasn't paying $100 for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I get. Like we were talking earlier before. I mean, I love bourbon, but the one thing I don't like about today's market is everything is so expensive. It's so young, and you just watch the prices go through the roof, and you're kind of like, don't get me wrong. Like if you 3 years ago, like I always remember a story. Like when I was into bourbon for a long time, but I was at Fort Knox. It was like 05 time frame getting out. Back to I was like, I'm gonna go. I just got my first civilian job, and I'm like, I'm gonna get a nice bottle of bourbon. At the time, I was drinking Maker's Mark, Knob Creek, and walk into the Class 6 which is a liquor store, and like, it was like all of these Pappy Van Winkle. There's all like people don't realize it used to be everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so like I remember walking up, there was all the Pappies, and I was like, oh my gosh! Like my wife's with me, I'm like, look at this bottle, has a guy. Like I never looked at it because of the price, right? Like, and it just wasn't what you drank. So I was like, oh my god, look at this! It has a guy smoking a cigar. I'm like, we got to get this. And I look at it, and it was like $124, right? And I was like,
screw that.
Who the fuck is paying $124 for a bottle of bourbon? And I was like, you're not. And I'm like, no way. And I remember putting it there, and I always tell my kids the story. I was like, if I could go back in time, I would have just like, grabbed all this because I've never paid over $124 for a bottle of bourbon in my life.
No, same.
That's a lie. No, I'm kidding.
Also a lie.
But then it went to the time frame where it was. But now I'm more back to where, again, like I love these. I mean, the price of them, $40. They're, the age is great. The proof is a nice thing where, I generally do like higher proof stuff, but this is still one of my favorites.
Yeah, we back in 2015, so a couple years before I moved to Ohio, Adrian got me a bottle of Bland's just off the shelf in New York, and it was $60.
Yeah,
and I didn't know what it was. I'm like, oh, that's spicy.
Yeah,
but I didn't really get into bourbon collecting until Uncle Todd moved next to me, and then he had a bigger shelf than I did. I said, I don't like that Todd.
I'm actually at the point of
Todd has a bigger shelf than I do.
I'm actually at the point. I don't think I've said this. Is like this is the third pour of whiskey I've had since December 27th, since my birthday last year. And I'm almost at the point of like, if you've never been down here, there's a lot of fucking bourbon down here. Yeah. I'm almost ready to be like, I'm like I got to get rid of it. Like I used to like, I don't see myself drinking at all. And it's just like,
there's some couple of dusty ones over there. I see that.
There's a lot of crazy stuff down here. Don't look around too much. We do have vicious dogs and an alarm system in case anybody's listening.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I just find it, to me, it's just like, it's also that, my priorities have changed a lot with, I've told people lately, my relationship with alcohol has changed a lot in the last couple of years. Didn't think I never had a drinking problem, but just was drinking for all the wrong reasons. I mean, now I'm just like, but the good news is as I sip bourbon, I love it. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But I just don't see myself drinking.
We've been getting to working out a little bit. And we've been doing tequilas, but kind of nicer ones that are like the Nejo's aged in barrels. Yeah. And you can notice like we've been doing this for years, and then you get into these nice tequilas, you're like, holy shit, you can taste everywhere it's been.
Yeah, I'm more into sneakers now. That's my defense.
Yeah, that's not sneakers.
I mean, you can only wear, so that may be one of my that may, but we were talking about this. This is a good point. Josh and I were just talking about this the other day. Yeah. Here's my point: that like bourbon is great, right? Don't get me wrong. Like you get a good bottle of bourbon, you can enjoy it, but it goes away eventually. Like a nice pair of shoes, you can wear them for a while, right?
Yeah, till your treads are gone.
Yeah, and you can just take them out. Like I mean, people like, So I mean, maybe I am gonna be unloading some bottles for possibly more shoes, but
as long as you trade it, that you're making money there.
Yeah, because there's a pair of shoes I want that, like, if I buy them, I think my wife is it'll be. It could be the end.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Shoe boxes show up instead of alcohol bottles. That's a little bit different. Did you get another bottle of bourbon? No. These shoes, they're for my fitness and health.
I just laugh about the bourbon because like I have it as like all the stuff like I didn't hide what. Like my dad's here. My dad even knows what he's talking about. Like, he used to go hunt. Like he would go and like.
A couple of times a week,
dude. He would come in here. We would have like this, like in a week, him and I would have like this table be full of like bourbon, and you're just like, and it's crazy. Like that used to be like, it used to actually be a fun thing to do. Yeah. But like, and then I'd always be worried. Like I'd always with Jana, my wife, I'd never lied about it, but I'd be like, hey, like she'd just be like, there's a lot of bourbon coming in. I'm like, oh, but I'm thinking like, don't worry, this is like these 7 bottles are for Josh, and I'd leave with them, and then you come back with 2, and she'd be like, but you got rid of 7, but you bring back 2. And I was like, oh, don't. But like, I mean, it does. Yeah. It's like, it's crazy. I mean, I can admit that I might have over purchased.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty though. You know what I mean? So actually,
I do enjoy it though. But I had hopes too that I have older kids like you do. So I was hoping that some of them would get the bug. I'm hoping they still do. So I do still enjoy, having a pour and talking with people and enjoying that. But it's
a lot of patio time.
Yeah. Yeah. But to me, it's,
I had to trade up my no soliciting membership for the Cobb membership, buying the bottles. So it equals out. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Once the bottles started overflowing near the couch, then we're like,
there's some places that I'd rather not talk about.
Storage.
What I have and don't have. It's just better just to. I started to do a spreadsheet one time, and it's not a good idea.
I started using the app, but I'm like 20 in. I'm like, this is too much work.
Yeah, the spreadsheet was like, no. When you get to like, it's the point of spreadsheet, you're like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because when people come over, I'm like, just pick some from the wall.
Yeah.
Like what? Anything? I'm like, yeah. They're like, we'll open something. It'll be great.
I'm not that freebie, like, like freeload, because I honestly have some stuff that's like, if I do want to get out of it, it's like, what I have in it. It could be beneficial for me. I could buy a line of Nike shoes with it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, several.
I could probably buy a car, and I might have to buy a new car. with recently what happened with the Miller household. So,
that's an investment then for sure.
Yeah. I'm on the. That's my wife is very strict about the gun purchase.
Yeah, I don't own any guns.
Yeah. Well, I did the buy one and not tell her. That's not a good move.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
just shows up.
Move. Yeah, but it didn't just show up. I was like, it did just show up. I went there and bought it, and it just didn't go well. So guns, I talked to the wife about. This another thing. But we have a rule, like anything over $500 we talk about anyways, whether it's a gun or anything. It's just still a good way to do that.
That's a good one.
Like my wife now has a problem apparently with Croc shoes, not the Crocs that you talk about. There's like Croc like women's shoes. No, they're not boots. They're like look like sandals. And she's giving me shit about. Just the other day, she's like, "You're not buying another pair of Nikes, are you?" And I'm like, "Well, maybe I am." And she's just like, "So while she's gone, this weekend, here comes another pair of these shoes." And I'm like, and I'm like, "What's up with these shoes?" She's out of control with these shoes, and I'm just like, she's getting them for like, she's also getting them for like $40, $30, and I'm getting mine for like, we don't want to talk about like the Nikes, but I'm like, I'll just, we'll just go one for one. So I think I'll buy another pair.
Yeah, you just offset it, like buy your shirts and pants from Costco, and that's your offset. Perfect.
It's perfect stuff from Costco. So let's go back to that again. We had some fun times. But I feel like this is a pivotal part of your story. You had your eyes of staying in the Air Force for a long time. It's not going your way. You got 2 young kids. You're like, hey, I'm not going to do this. So you just, leave your career.
Yeah.
Head up to New York. The family situation is not great. So what was the hardest part about it? Was it losing your job, losing your identity, losing your friends? What were you struggling with the most?
So I think it was a whole gamut of that. So I basically had 60 days of pay, right? I had 60 days vacation time, and we had zero savings. We were on WIC and welfare down in Texas because of how much money we made with our 2 children. That stopped in New York because of different laws and regulations. And I don't even know, the boys know this, but we used their first half of their college savings to survive. I was out of work for like 3 months, and I just happened to, somebody walked into my mom's clinic. So she was a nurse, and said, hey, everybody knows each other in town, right? So we got a job out in Fonda, New York at a machine shop who makes stuff for aerospace. And I had my bachelor's in aeronautics at the time. And I did like quality assurance. I actually went through like aeronautical engineering. So I did like human factors, cockpit design, effects on the body for different types of impact resistance. I went to Albany Airport and I went to Syracuse Airport, and it was right in the downturn 2009, right when everything was going to shit. So I couldn't find a job anywhere. So I was literally doing laser cutting, EDMing metal, working on CNC machines. That's what I was doing for like 3 years while I was getting my feet kind of settled down. So was it a party that was like beating yourself up about getting out? What was going on with you? Oh yeah. It wasn't good upstairs by myself. I struggled probably because I made that decision in like 4 days. So we literally said, hey, these are our options. I'll leave you for 365 days. Because you don't come home during that time. You're doing a year remote. They can come see you. But who would have money to pay for them to go from Texas to Korea? Because she's just staying in base housing at that point. Yeah. And it was a 4-day decision. As soon as we got to New York, we rented a really shitty house. Had mold in the basement. We never went in the basement. Had like mold and stuff around there. And after that job, we were actually looking to move. I kind of started going to school a little bit more for my master's degree, really slowly, and ended up getting out of there. I got my first safety certification, and it was just a associate safety professional. So you got to have a couple years in doing safety stuff, and I ended up going up into the oil and gas sector in Rome, New York. So I would drive from Dallas, New York in the middle of the Adirondacks to another city way more north in the middle of the Adirondacks, 60 miles one way. Took about 75 minutes one way, and I did that for 5 years in the oil and gas industry. But I got a ton of safety certs there, a bunch of rigging stuff. That kind of put us more stabilized as far as money goes. So the stress went way down as soon as that job came in.
So how are you dealing with the stress back then?
Stress was really tough. It was if I de-stressed on that 75-minute ride there and back, and I just listened to like podcasts before they were podcasts. I can't remember what they were called. They were like just like short stories, and that was kind of my de-stress. Excuse me. As I was doing my master's, even my bachelor's, we'd have, my day was pretty structured. Get up like 5 o'clock, get to work, come back to work, play with the kids for maybe an hour before they went to bed, and give the wife a kiss. And then I'd be on the computer for 3 hours a night doing my master's degree. Same thing on the bachelor's. Like Adrian was a crutch most of the time for that, just the development of the kids and getting them ready to go. And I got to spend way more time with them outside of the military. I think that was my biggest benefit of getting out. When I was in, you work out with your squadron at 4 a.m. and you go teach kids for 8 hours. And then you go to the gym with the squadron until about 6. And they had like 20 minutes left and they went to bed.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit different.
I think that's a lot of work now for the Air Force, though. I mean,
it's terrible. Like, what are we going to do with that?
What do we need to do with that? I don't know if I've seen this in the Air Force, but I'm believing you on this. So that, you know.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, when I did the security forces, they're like, cool, you have a T prefix, which means you can teach shit. Like, hey, why don't you come to these close quarters combat instructor classes and you can then teach it? I said, when do we use this? When would we use it? When you just like, we had jets. We send jets into to areas. So like what?
Like really
what are we gonna do this with?
High tech jet.
Yeah, and then like I got.
And I'm not even with the jet.
I know. And then we got marksman and like rifle and pistol. I'm like, the only times I shoot this is the one time a year where we actually have it. So even in Korea, we had the Marines at the line. So we're like, what am I doing? Like,
I feel like if you're using hand-to-hand combat
like
as an F-15 crew chief,
wrong.
A lot of things have gone wrong.
You gotta slap a pilot or something. Well, they go through, like, we had to go through survival school for a couple of days, heat and cold. And they went through a couple weeks where they just kind of drop them off, and just like the heavies do when they fly out. But I don't foresee using any of it. But like, cool, you're an instructor. Because as soon as you get your T, you can give kids college credit for the CCAF, the Community College of the Air Force. Yeah. And that's what we certified when we signed the documents for their training. So it didn't matter what you were trained in as an instructor, you can still use those skills. Yeah. So some of that training they gave us was a little shitty. It was not fun for my physical health.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't good. Because you'd have like Navy SEALs come up, and because the Navy base was right down the road from there, and their thighs were like the size of tree trunks. So if they it felt like you'd break in half when they got into you a little bit. And then the interrogation stuff was really good skill set for today, but during that time was not good training for us, because you have kids 17 years old, and half your training of them is how to make them mentally stable for the military. So you're going through hundreds of hours of counseling training, and I think that's what I look back on it now. That's what makes me my master's was in behavioral health for safety, and I think that was one of the best kind of basis for me to actually have those easy conversations with super difficult people. Yeah. So contractors yelling at you all day, and you just stay calm and just have a chat with them. I think that's
it is nuts with the because if you're in the military, I didn't realize that it can age from range from like 18-year-old kids to 40-year-old.
Yeah. I had 17-year-old kids come through tech school, and I had 29-year-old guys who were brought into the military to go through tech school as well. Which I didn't think the Air Force brought in people, but they came in. Yeah. So do you know what brought in? Forced in, or you got a couple options? Yeah. Yeah, those guys. Okay.
But hey, it's a landing ground for me. It's
for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking, you definitely in the military, when you're there, you learn a lot. I think a lot of stuff when I look at, like, I don't want to say like it's leadership anymore, but you just learn how to deal with people, because there are so many different people. Like, for sure. You don't realize until you've never been in the military, you just don't know how diverse they are. Just like all kinds of different people, ages. Yeah. Like it's just crazy. And you got to learn to get along with everybody, because if you don't, it just makes your life, it makes it very miserable. But I think that's where I don't like to say the word leadership, but anymore. But it's like I just learned how to deal with people at that point, because you really have to learn really quick. You can't anymore like no one conversation was ever the same. Well, people are in it for different reasons. Like there's always like the weird, like when you like dive into it, there's that always shocked me too, because I had the story while I was in the military, right? And it was a story, but then you start realizing like like I said before, I was trying to get away from home and one up my dad. That's what I was trying to do, but you see these people that like literally they're just like this is all they had, or they're just like just different reasons for being there. Pre 9/11 is just a different thing. So like how you thought you'd motivate something was like no. And what I learned too is like for me it was like, especially when you're dealing with as an officer, you're dealing with like UCMJ stuff like that. You learn really quickly like some of these guys don't give a shit what you do to them, but like if you took money away from them, like dude, these guys would be like, please don't. Like, I will do anything. Just don't take money, because they didn't want to go back home. And because they weren't making a lot of money. And you hit on that too. That was another important thing that people don't realize. I mean, I always look back and look how little, I thought I was making really good money back then.
Yeah. My last W-2 was 21 grand being in the military. So that's what that was.
Yeah.
But you mentioned motivation for going in. I went in September 5th, 2001. So my entire flight was pre 9/11.
Yeah.
And we had super rich kids in there. We had farmers in there who still had the stench of the farm on them coming through. That motivation was way different. And I still talk to them right now. And I don't have one of my good friends who's not pretty successful just because of the thick skin that they garnered while they were in there. So it was, we all thought when that hit, we thought it was an exercise. So we were in basic training. We thought it was an exercise, like, oh, what, they're fucking with us, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And we were on the parade field just doing drill, and they said, stop what you're doing, run to the dorm. And we all stood there and waited because we thought, like, what's going on? Yeah. And we heard sirens. We went into, I don't remember, I think it was Delta. We went in immediately.
Yeah.
And we sprinted towards the dorms, and nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And they didn't talk to us for like a day and a half. We stood in the dorms, like, come get food. And then they told us.
Yeah, it's a crazy time. I realized, like, when you look at, like, especially when it comes around the anniversary of it, and then you think about everything that happens, and it's crazy because you like growing up, I'd always hear people talk about like when Kennedy was shot or all these like major things, and like I find myself the same way. In September, you like start looking at that, and like all those feelings come back. Like just like the craziness and how it changed just a generation's life, you know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure.
And changed my life, you know what I mean? Changed my family's life. So it's just a crazy thing. So let's talk back about you're struggling for a little bit. Was there any part of you that you made a 4-day decision? Was there any part of you that was beating you up about did I make the right decision? Did you ever think about saying, hey, I'm gonna go back in the Air Force? And did you any of that going on?
So I'd say day 60, vacation, or my leave was out, and we were about to survive on the kids' college fund until I found a job. And I was going job hunting every single day. I wasn't staying home any day. I was even going towards like local mills to like operate machinery at that point. Like I don't give a shit. Like just make some money. Couldn't use my degree because airports weren't hiring because it was the recession. Right out of that job, I think going back in was just never an option.
Why is that?
I always kind of portrayed going back in as I'm either gonna be redeployed, and the boys were probably when we really got settled, like after that point, they were still 1 and 3, and we just got settled in the house, or 2 and 4 at the time. They were kind of my main motivator to like do night school and to keep going, just for those guys to grow up a little bit different than I was, kind of like give them more worldly activities or exposures. And I think that was my main motivation. I think if I went back in the military, I was, I think if you're out over a year, you're going through basic training again. You can't bounce back in. I don't think I could have handled that at all. So I don't think it would have been fine. I don't think it would have been good.
Like no,
because you end up working out almost 12 hours a day. I stopped dead. I gained 60 pounds in my first year out. It just came on. Stretch marks, A cups. You know what I mean? It wasn't the best.
Yeah, it's always crazy. It's Yeah, because you don't realize how active you are, and then how you exercise all the time, and then the stress hits you in some different ways. But I mean, I think your story is interesting because it's the opposite of a lot of people. Like a lot of people, like I just was talking to my wife about something. Like I left my wife with 2 kids to go to Afghanistan. I mean, one, and I think Ben was like 2.5, and Nate was under. He wasn't even 6 months old, so it's like, and it never crossed my mind, like, I mean, so like, it's, your story is kind of unique. If you talk to military people, like, people are just like, okay, cool, you're hey honey, you're stuck with the kids, and I'll see you in a year.
Because I'd leave for a month at a time, 2 months at a time before kids, and I was perfectly comfortable with it because she was raised military, and she, her dad would leave, and she grew up with all that military family. I just felt terrible about it, leaving the boys. I was too attached to him. I mean, I helped create him a little bit. So for
me, I mean, at the time, for me, I like had it, like, it was a little bit different. Like for my situation, I wasn't like I was re-enlisted or anything, but I didn't really have a choice, right? But the whole mentality was like, I didn't give a fuck, but I really did. And it was like, and that's one of the things too, is I think, that's why it's interesting to bring it up, because you're being honest about it. It bothered you, right? You didn't want to do that. A huge part, like most of me didn't want to do it either, but you just can't say that, right? You just got to do it. And that's for me is where a lot of my shame came on. A lot, I felt really bad about myself. Like, I mean, it's really hard to make jokes about it because, like, especially I left I left for Korea when my wife was still with baby, you know what I mean? And as much as you want to talk about it, you do this all the kind of stuff. Like, I was starting to feel really shitty about that. Like, I was drinking way too much, partying, doing what I want to do. And meanwhile, my wife is having a baby by, or she's, living with her aunt in New York, and I'm doing this. And then, like, there's a party, like, but you can't, it wasn't an environment where you can be like, hey guys, the only time that would happen is if somebody got really drunk or I got drunk, you start talking about how you miss your family, but then, like, the next day nobody talks about it, right? So
I mean, there was breakdowns like 2 weeks into Korea for some of our trips for some of the guys who had kids out back, and you just physically see it break it down, and you just sit there with your arm around them.
See, like, mine was different. I would like, I was struggling like really hard internally, but I would not do it. So that's when I went over there, that's when I started to detach. So like, if I deployed somewhere, I did just detach. Like, I wasn't the guy that was writing letters. I wasn't doing that kind of stuff because I had some fucking story. I probably can't remember why I told you I was doing it, but it's the only main reason was I just had to pretend like I wasn't doing that.
For sure.
Just
your avoidance at that point. That's
I mean, and that's the only way like at the time, I have it, it's what got me through that, but I just carried on that guilt and there's times that, like, for me, it's interesting. Like, I look at, my 2 oldest and they generally tend to go to my wife with some stuff still today. And I feel like the youngest one who I've been around his whole life will be like, hey, and there's a part of you that, like, that's a harsh reality for me. It was like, okay, I get it. I mean, I don't have an, I used to be really upset by that, but now I'm like, well, what do you expect? I freaking left him all the time. And
it's funny. It's kind of the opposite right now at home. So growing up, the boys always went to mom. Cause I used to travel a ton for work as well. And it was easier because we had FaceTime at that point. So I'd still talk to them every single day. Now they're older, college. Like, I get most of the phone calls, and she gets a little pissy about it.
See, I get the calls.
She'll say it too. It's super funny.
I get the calls of when it's bad, like like Saturday. I'm hanging out, like like getting ready to go to work, and like the night before, like my youngest son's 20, so he was taking his girlfriend back late, and like I literally in my mind was worried because it's late Friday. I'm like drinking. I'm like he's gonna get. I'm like, I literally said he's gonna get into an accident. I'm like, and I was kind of worried about it. Like, that's like one of the things that, like, I'm always paranoid about is when they're out driving late. I mean, I think he's a responsible guy, but I'm like, so then like Saturday the phone rings, and like when my kids call me now, I'm always like,
what's going on?
What the fuck is up? Like something when they do go like, I'm just calling to say hi. I'm like, but what's the matter? Like, no, we just called to say hi. But like, he calls me, and I was like, right when the phone rang, I was like, he got in a fucking accident. And like, lo and behold, he did. I was like, shit, and it's just, it does change. I mean, it's still nowadays as they go to her, it's the path of least resistance. So if they want to get, everything to be, not that I'm mean, but it's just, it's I'm used to the problem solver. They come to me when there's a problem. They call mom about it and stuff, which I'm fine with. But
that's a good balance.
No, I'm not. I'm okay with it. But
it's way different now because we actually, like, Adrian and I had a conversation the other day about how much we talk to our parents versus how much we talk to our kids. It's probably 40,000% difference. At least a daily conversation. I'll send a text if they're out and about college, whatever. And it's at least daily. And I'll remember going months without talking to my parents, even growing up in the same house. It was way different.
Yeah, I just recently saved my dad's phone number in my phone.
Did you?
It seemed like he's looking around. No. It's but it was a different time. I mean, like there's all these ways to communicate. They weren't around there for a long time, so it was a different. Like I always love, like when I went to, like we're talking about deployments going to Korea, like there's no I think it was AOL. It's how you can
That's
like
all
get
it
on
was.
there. Yeah.
There's no FaceTime.
There's no. Yeah, like so now when people are talking about like missing their kid, I'm like, number one, your kid's 2 hours away. You have FaceTime. You can do everything with them. Like you see them all the time, and they're like, come on, you know what I mean? But ours is different. Like mine are older though. They all live here. We talked about it before. Soon it's going to change. Thank God. But my wife was just the other day was like, oh gosh, you're going to be upset that Ben's gone. Like my oldest is getting ready to move out. And I'm like, he lives here, but I hardly see him. Like I just see him to come get laundry,
food.
Yeah, food exactly. Like food. So he's kind of already moved out, so we just see him when we want to see him. I like it. I have it that'll be better because he'll be able to come over, for social instead of just like right now it is literally when I think he runs out of. I have my philosophy is like, I'll just say it's just when he needs food or But the other day I was like, do you even know how to do laundry anymore? And he's just like, I know how to do laundry. Okay. I'm like, well, you're going to find out. But I even as they get older, I think it's harder to talk to them all the time. I mean, I feel like even in the same house, it's, it's communication is just working at it. Man. Yeah.
Yeah. Our oldest actually works for Vasily as well. He's a laborer. So kind of learning like carpentry, plumbing, electrical stuff like that. We talk more now because of that position he's in, but our youngest in college, he just came home yesterday, packed his entire car full up, and now it's all over the house. So it's gonna be a little bit different for the summer. Be a lot of food gone.
Was this freshman year?
Yeah, freshman year.
The dude, trust me. By the end of the summer, you're like, get out. Like
we're looking for jobs right now.
My youngest one, I love my youngest one, but like he's fine. Like he's going. Like he went away for his freshman year, and then he was back here.
Yeah. For 2 months.
So it's great that it is great to have him, but it's great to have him. But like he's got an apartment and a house in August. I'm like, it'll be good to just
it'll be quiet. It'll be quiet.
I'm just looking for the opportunity for to be having out with my wife. Is like it's time for me to be a husband and my wife to be a wife because we try to do that, but I'm not faulting my wife anyway, but like the kids are still her priority. It's like that's still like it's just hysterical to watch. It's like that's one of the things we have discussions about most is I'll just be like I'll lose it, and they'll be like, she's like, they're fine. But they did the laundry today, and I'm just like they did the dishwasher, and I'm just like, oh great, you didn't know. But so I'm looking forward to that change, the empty nest because I was an empty nester, and then they all came back, which is good. So
that's nice though. We could just hang around.
I love having around.
We had chats about that same thing. Like I think we went a stretch when we were in Texas just because of the money where we didn't go on a date for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And we had a little breakdown and chat about it.
Yeah.
Aggressively. And we just made some changes. That's all. Good self-identification because I think of how our families were. So
date night. When after with the Saber War, that's one of the things I put in there to be like we weren't doing that. We weren't dating each other. So
you gotta date your wife. It's important. Who said that? Somebody said that.
Somebody said you can't date.
You gotta date your wife. From Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I think that's but just make it a priority of like all those things and to do that for a while. But I think it's important to put that on the calendar and
for sure
and live by that and make that declaration and say you're gonna do it. It's important. But me, I can't wait because most of the days too is she's like. Josh knows my wife, and then obviously my dad does. But she'll literally be like, "What should we get the boys something to eat tonight?" And I'm just like, inside, I'm like, "Fuck those guys!" Like, I mean, what are we talking about? Like, they both have jobs. They have they have car. If they're hungry, I'm like, she's like, they really like burgers. So I'm just like, I'm pretty sure they have it covered. You know what I mean? But like, it's always
we literally had that conversation Sunday at Costco. I picked up a golf shirt. Okay, let's get this for our youngest. He doesn't have a job. He's in school. He's like, well, we got to get it for Nate too. Like, he's got a fucking job.
Yeah.
We're stopping buying all of his stuff. He pays for his own gas now. I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah. Tim Durbin, happy wife, happy life. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. But it's just so fun. I love talking about the boys because it's the reality. Like my only real pet peeve though is like, we're not going to talk about the one thing that the real pet peeve that drives me nuts that I have to do a lot of work on because it's a you know, I got a lot of expectations, and anytime you have expectations, it's just resentments,
just a little bit,
you know, in the making.
That works its way out though.
But yeah, the one thing that drives me nuts is my wife will be like, we'll open a thread and be like, what does everybody need from Target? So my son is a nurse. Okay. Right. I'm not going to say how much money he makes, but he's a nurse, like a real live nurse. I didn't think he was, but he's a real nurse. Yeah. The other one has a real job. Also, he's a, you know, he's not an accountant yet. He's a, what was this? Yeah, he's an accountant. Yeah. He's in the process of being official. He's got broken in. Josh is like, he's in the gang after tax season. Yeah. So these guys make pretty good money, enough money that they should be able to get their own fucking toothpaste. Their own like
as soon as the job starts,
they will literally get on there. And my wife will be like, what do you need? And they're like, oh, can you give me some acne pads? And I'm just like, go to Target yourself. Yeah. Well, mom asked. I'm like, well, you tell mom no. That is the one thing. And then the bags, like they're just like my 20-year-old, he's in college. I'm cool with that. But like the 24-year-old,
that's far
22-year-old, like
that's far out.
Dude, like you got to get your own toothpaste, right? Yeah. Am I wrong on that?
No. As soon as he got a job, like
your own
all
deodorant,
of his stuff is his own stuff. Yeah. He got his own Sam's card. He's ready to go.
So his own Sam's card. Damn, I don't have that. Like my kids never, like they don't even know where. Yeah, I don't even. It's literally like I think I've socially.
So let me tell you a funny story.
I've dumb my kids down. Like my oldest son is he comes home and like his scrubs get hung up like he wants them. You know what I mean? He just gets the scrubs. He comes down. He's like, oh, you guys made dinner. He's like, can I get this? You know what I mean? And then he's like, and it's just he's like, you know, oh, you know, oh, are these is this yogurt for me? Well, I guess it is. Oh, of course you can have it, honey. And you like take it. And then like yesterday, like I'm addicted to those Reese's animal crackers from Costco.
Costco, yeah. Those go fast, I love like those. A day or two.
Yeah, but but I'm actually pretty good. I take like 5 of them, bought a bag. Like the first time I bought them, that's another thing in my house. Yeah. You buy something new, everyone's like, who bought these? Who bought these? This like, what are these for? I'm like, I bought them for myself. Yeah. And then they'll, you know,
or they bring
someone takes a bite of them. Oh, I don't like these. These aren't good. I'm like, good. They're for me. 5 minutes later, where did they go? Yeah. Oh, I only had 3. Like they'll come up to that kind of. So like those Reese's I bought. Yeah. I got 0 of them. There's my son putting him in there. I'm like, yeah, dude. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. You know, and he comes in the bag. I'm like, okay, sure. Just eat. You know, the Reese. Then he like reaches into the bag after he just touched. He's like, here, you want this one? I'm like, just go. Like, just when do you move out?
We can't have Doritos.
I gotta hide stuff. Yeah. And then they know where my hiding spot is. It's like it's like I feel like a sense of like by August my whole.
It'll calm down.
Yeah. But I'm agreeing with you. Like your own deodorant, your own acne cream.
As soon as you get your own money, it's easy.
Yeah.
But I'll
put my foot down.
Early on, I said that I didn't get any guidance for like how to manage funds or anything like that. When the boys turned 12, I got them their own credit card and checking account like under our name. So they started building credit right away. Yeah. And they just started using it exactly the way we were doing it. We did the Dave Ramsey method.
Yeah. But the great thing for me is I make a joke about it, but we did ask them. I'm thankful that they're here. Yeah. It gives an opportunity to pay off, you know, some loans. It's my way of helping. Right. Yep. But there is a point of like, hey, I'm buying your toiletries. Right. And then like, ping pong, like the front door rings and I go and there's a fucking box, a long box. And then the one was like, oh dad, I just got this new 3-wood. I'm just like, oh boy. Yep. Yep. I'm like, buy your own toiletries. Yeah. No, but I just can't wait to see my oldest deal with that. It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great. Yeah. Our youngest is in school up in ONU for nursing. So he's doing the same thing. Yeah. Loves it.
Yeah, does he have any aspirations of what kind of?
Well, he wanted to be like a combat nurse for emergency evac. That's what he's looking to do. So we went to a lot of air shows growing up and still kind of military affiliated events and stuff like that. So I think that's what drove him to it. Yeah. Or maybe he just likes blood and gore. Either one of those two things there.
Do people ask if he's going to get into travel nursing? That's my thing. That comes up all the time. I'm just like,
I had a ton of
if someone asks me about travel nursing anymore, I'm just like, no. Like, talk to Ben. I don't.
It's a big ring. Yeah. Make a ton of money. Like the amount of money though, like just for hunting that dollar down.
We have this discussion with him. It's like he's at OSU. So let's just put it this way. OSU has a very good retirement. So he finally looked at his first statement of what it looks like when he retires from OSU. And I'm like, that's a huge difference. So like, I understand it. Yeah, I understand it, but it just comes a bunch of stuff. Like if he's, 10 years or so, like, I don't think, like he's getting ready to move. He's moving down to just south of Columbus. So it's no big deal. You know, I mean, he's going to be close, but that's always people like, that's one of the things that I always bring up. It's like, your son doing travel nursing? Like it's like the same thing in the military. Like, do you know Joe? Like,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, Joe, what? Like Joe Smith, he's a Marine. I'm like, no, I don't.
No.
You know what I mean?
You get that a lot. Oh,
Yeah.
Air Force. My son was in. Where were you? Oh, do you know him? Like, no, none of that.
Yeah, you're like, I used to lie all the time too. I'd be like, oh yeah, and like I've lied before and said I know. Yeah, oh yeah, I know. And they're just like, oh cool, and you just go on about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But let's talk about some art stuff. We've had some good conversations.
Yeah,
some fun stuff. Like, you did share that you've lost some friends to suicide.
Yep.
You know, what kind of effect did that have on you, and how did that shape, you know, what type of mental support and what kind of things that you were doing when you saw that happening?
So the first couple of friends, actually, I was thinking about this when we were doing when we were talking about suicide awareness. My first friend, actually, we went in buddy system into the Air Force. So we went through basic training together. He was a security forces. I was a crew chief around the same area for training. And he took his life short, like maybe a month after his daughter was born. And we were maybe a year in. And I just remember being super pissed, like going up to the funeral and everyone was like sad that he was gone. And I was just on the level of super pissed at that point, just because he left everybody behind. Like I didn't look at it like he took his own life. I look at it like he affected the rest of them. And I didn't really get into the emotional support until I got into Amazon and I joined Amazon Warriors, who's I think there's over like 45,000 members now. Just Amazon is like, you know, a few million employees.
A lot of ex-military people too.
A ton. So our entire support organization where I was stationed, working out at CMH1 right down here, 100% of our senior leadership was military. Yeah. So we had Army, Marines, Air Force, and Navy all at one table. So I always say like Amazon was my most favorite job because it was almost exactly like the military. You were direct feedback 100% of the time. Like you told fuck you to your face and then you adjusted and you kept going. But when we got into that military organization, I had hundreds of hours of counseling training because I was an instructor for those young kids and we required it. But I didn't really see the steps up to the suicide. I always saw the aftermaths first until we started actually going through like the Save a Warrior, the Gary Sinise, even the Wounded Warrior stuff. They talk about suicide all the time, losing a limb. And that's where it kind of triggered, it swapped that trigger for me from being like, hey, anger from actually understanding like why it was happening. I had a couple military buddies get cancer so bad that they took their lives. They were literally weighing it, like going down to like skeletons, and they decided to finish things early. And that was really tough just to kind of watch them go through that. And getting into that military organization, actually helping veterans, it just kind of flips your switch on what you're targeting for that. So I think that made a big difference, actually seeing the direct effect of what people were thinking and going towards that decision and actually going through that. It's a little bit different. Yeah,
it kind of similar to me when you like like there was a lot of anger, like, you know, there's the people that have done it there, you know, initially there was a lot of anger. For me, because you see the aftermath of it, and then the anger for me was a lot of it was, if I was being honest, you know, like I was thinking about it a lot too, you know what I mean? And when you think about it, it's just kind of funny that I was angry at these people for something that I was thinking an awful lot and too much about.
It was always that easier switch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it seemed like it just, you know, for me, I've talked about on the podcast, and I always talk about now, I'm not, you know, like I just, you know, I always knew I didn't have I said I didn't have the courage to do it. I went through the ritual, but, you know, I just was in that long, you know, the long drawn out suicide where I didn't care, you know what I mean? It's a large part of my life where I just didn't really care what was going on. And, you know, I just didn't have the courage to do it. And I don't say courage, but I had the system was going to win. But little did I know that I was just, you know, digging myself into a deeper hole that, you know, took, you know, 50 years for me to get out of, really. But that anger it's funny. Like I talk about that before, like, you know, I lost a classmate of mine. It's kind of what you asked when we started doing this was in 2002. So I think, you know, when Steve Walker took his life is when I you know, there was an anger still going on, and I was just like, something's got to change. Someone's got to start talking about this. We got to do something, right? Because it was, you know, there's a still part of me that gets angry because I have it that it's just not, it's a temporary it's a permanent problem to a permanent solution to a temporary problem, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And a lot of the times it's just not, and you're not in the right thinking. And like if you just talk to people about it and talk about how you're feeling, you'll just realize, holy shit, this person feels the same as I do.
Yeah,
and you're not alone.
We have battle buddies for that exact reason.
Yeah.
That buddy check sticker over there, same thing. Like if you know a veteran in need, you take a sticker, you give them a sticker, and then they pass it along. But that was the same thing when we actually, like Amazon Warriors, they established that buddy system for those people trying to reach out and just kind of getting that discussion point. And it's literally just having a conversation with somebody at any time. Yeah,
our my school started that too, a buddy check. They do it. I can't remember when they do it, but to me that's an interesting concept too, because we just recently lost another a Norwich alum end of last year, or actually the beginning of this year, I'm sorry, and a couple years older than me, but like the same thing, a guy who's like talking to people all the time. I just seen people with the Army Navy game. So the buddy check thing is great, but you got to be like, it's got to be like, I'm all about the real conversations
for
now.
sure.
Yeah. Like, so the buddy check thing isn't just calling somebody and being like, how you doing? And they're going, oh, I'm good. Good. Yeah. And then you for me, and then you just watch, because I was doing the same thing. And then, you're watching a friend of yours that's just like, their whole life is fucking, on flames around them. And they're like, oh, I'm fine. Or, or just, there's the buddy check thing. I have it now that, I'm really like, generally, if I'm having a conversation with them, I really want to know what's going on, because I want to try to see, like, because I've been there before, right? Those things that, like, everyone talks about, like, they never saw it coming. Like, they just see these things not coming. And I don't know how much I believe that anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because
there's too much sharing.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's guys and gals who definitely isolate and you never know about it. But if you're really talking to somebody, and you're open with someone, they're going to see it. You know what I mean? So it's those hard conversations of having it, like, and my anger has gone away from Steve, like how it was before. And it's funny, like, when Teb took his life early in the year, like there was no anger about it anymore. It's like, it's just sadness, right? It's sadness for, it's not just for his family, it's sadness for him, you know what I mean? Because like what, why was he so lonely? He was on, this guy's on social media all the time. Like I said, was just with a bunch of guys and gals, the Army Navy. Like, this guy was a social guy. And he just thought that was the right way out. And there's a sadness that, that's why I've kind of dedicated my life to talking about that and getting people through that sadness and through that cloud, you know what I mean?
And we have on Facebook, I have about 60 or 70 crew chief buddies still on Facebook. That was my primary like motivation for Facebook, to get those guys, or just to kind of keep contact. Once in a while, you'll see your picture turn into our basically our AFSC. It's like an eagle with some wings around it, and you'll see a black bar in the middle of it, and somebody will just post it, and everyone chimes in. What happened? Who was it? And that's our suicide sign for our gang. So
and it's like, I mean, it's just like I said before, I try to talk about this as much as I can. It's like reach out. Like, it's ultimately the personal responsibility to talk about, and you're not alone, man. And there's so many people that are feeling the same way you're doing. They just don't have the courage to talk about it. So reach out, talk about it. If you can't talk to a friend, it's a good opportunity to talk about this. If you are, or someone who's in crisis, it might be considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline at 988 or 1-800-273-8255 and press 1. Or you can text 838-255, or you can now chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat. But yeah, like reach out, and like, it's a to me, I'm glad you brought that up, that anger, like, cause I just don't have that anymore about it. It's just a sadness. And I even told Steve's widow about that one time, that I was so angry with him. I was down here, and just like I was mad because at that point, like, Steve and I weren't like super close friends, but like I just had higher expectations for him, like, what I mean, what he went through. And then like, it was like, you left your, a lot of mine used to just be that sadness was just for the family, but now it's for the person themselves too, because the amount of hurt, the amount of shame, the amount of guilt you're carrying, you don't need to. And there's organizations that can help if you're not getting help by the VA. I talk about them all the time. Save a Warrior changed my life. It saved my life. My life has never been better. If you're here to local Ohio, it's just right around the corner. I tell anybody if you have any questions, or you think you might need it, something in your life's not working, get on the website, fill out the application, submit, and you're going to find out if it works for you. You know what I mean? So, but there's some of the great organizations, some of the organizations you talk that, hopefully we can talk about, that are doing great things. They're all out there to do that. So,
Yeah.
Just now it's a lot of sadness.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I was
soon.
18 when the first time it happened, and it was never talked about up to that point. So it was like a shock, and then you're thrown into it. It's bizarre.
Yeah. So if you could go back then, when you're hearing about that, like, what would you tell somebody that's like at the bottom there? Like, did you ever thought about suicide with all the stuff that was going on with you?
No, you know what? I mean, the thought has crossed your mind, but I was always focused on the boys when they were there, because I saw the effect it had on the families of our friends who, took their lives, and their families like destroyed. Like, wife goes into depression, kids don't know what happened. I don't know. It always bothered me to get to that point, to leave them all alone at that point. So
you do a lot of work. You're pretty. You brought us this. I feel like this is like a word riddle. The Warriors.
It's hard to say it.
Wangling Walleye.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I can say that easier than I can say your last name. But organizations like Warriors Wangling. I think it's almost a joke. I got to look at it to make sure I'm saying it.
Yeah.
And Project Healing Waters, and also Patriots on the Fly. Why do those organizations resonate so much with you personally?
So I always really enjoyed donating anytime I could to any kind of military organizations, just because I knew what we went through.
Right.
These guys actually, these two were actually, when I got to Vasily, they were already pre-established, and I just went to one of their events to get some walleye up in Lake Erie. And
wangling walleye, or just
wangling? Okay. I was wangling them hard. Yeah. And they were just all their time and effort, that like, it's retired folks who put all their time and effort to just getting military members to relax and go fishing.
Yeah.
And then the Patriots on the Fly, they actually train veterans on how to be fishing guides for other veterans. And it's almost like a pyramid effect on how they can just help each other go through this entire process. And they're all linked with SAW. Yeah. So it's all
today,
local organizations.
Yeah, and there's a huge push there. Like, for Warriors Wangling Walleye, they're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All their proceeds from the event, they do a fishing tournament every April. So we just missed the one for 2025, but usually like $400 a person. All those benefits go towards veterans or their local veterans organizations. One of them being Save a Warrior. Also another is Patriots on the Fly. We're gonna, Josh put that in the comments here now, but there'll also be a post on the page about it too. But they're located on the shores of Lake Erie and Port Clinton. And the other one you talked about, these all these posts to be on there too. The other one you're talking about was Patriots on the Fly. Huge organization. They have the buddy check fly that you were talking, or buddy check fly that they started, basically after the loss of a local veteran to suicide. So they decided to do that. So there's great things out there. All those will go up. And the other one was Project Healing Waters. I've known about them for a long time, and an amazing organization, helping active military service personnel, veterans, through dedicated and development curriculum of fly fishing, fly casting, fly tying, and fly ride building. And then I think from their their website, and just in 2024 alone, they've helped over 6,800 participants, comprised all service eras, through generous work of almost the same amount of active volunteers, 6,329. So it's awesome to see. And there's great organizations that do that. And that's why I always tell people, Save a Warrior work for me. It's changed my life, but like, there's all these organizations that's trying to help. I mean, there's a couple weeks ago, we had the folks from, doing, horse therapy, equine therapy. We just had Sean on last week, talking about service dogs, animals. There's all these ways to find what works for you. You just got to get out of your shell. You just got to get out of your basement. And go find something that works for you.
I try to spread the word as much as I can about these local orgs. I myself, because of my, I have a certified safety professional designation. I volunteer my safety services for like local veteran owned businesses as well. So if they need like help with like OSHA comes by or anything like EPA, air, water, anything like that, I usually volunteer my services for those specific to like veterans organizations as well.
So do you think, that passion to come back and, do those organizations and help out with them, does that help you with your, when you're thinking about the struggles you've had, what does it do for your personal life? Yeah,
I think it gives me a huge boost anytime somebody reaches out. Like, hey, just come on and look at my facility and see if I, am in trouble. And then we literally, stepping in the door, we talk about our military histories.
Yeah.
and we talk about these support organizations, and we talk about their employees and how it's impacted their employees. Like a couple organizations downtown, they only employ veterans, and well, not only, but they support, hiring veterans and like making products. And it's I consider that a secondary support mechanism. Like you're having all these group think around, and they're like, it's like a built-in support mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah. Like one of the things we talked about, with Save Wars, others haven't gotten, and I never, when I went through almost a couple of years ago through the container, and like you see all these people that are, have went before you, and you're like, they have something I want, right? And then like being able to give back to, when I'm working with men, it's like, it's pretty much, you're talking about the bourbon group that we're in together, like you're seeing like the bare bones of what I used to do in that. I mean, that used to be where I consumed a lot of my time, and it just wasn't good for me. But, like being able to work with other men, that's where I get a lot of my own healing.
Yeah.
I always tell those men that we're working with, I'm on calls with these guys all the time. And I'm like, I leave the basement here and I'm just like, wow, this, having a conversation with this guy is like, I had a conversation with a guy this morning that just, I don't, I say this now because it's important to talk about it, tell them. And I think sometimes they don't believe it, but like talking to a guy struggling and being able to share my story and help them is like, that saves my life. Right.
Yeah.
It gives me purpose for the first time in my life. And that that's what Saver Warrior has done for me. And I always tell people, and today is a great thing. And I'm going to kind of just steal the show here for a second. A big move for a Saver Warrior today. And, the largest cohort that we've ever done at Saver Warrior just went into the container today. It's 22 women who are spouses of Saver Warrior veteran alumni. So it's one of the first of a kind that we're doing, and hopefully not the last. I think there's another one in November, and there's also going to be one for males that are spouses of female warrior class. So to all my sisters that are down there Red Xing and shepherding and the staff, I'm holding space for you. All the women that are there, my thoughts are with you, and it's a huge. The community is behind you. And I just thought that'd be a good opportunity to share that with them. And like I said, if parts of your life don't work, definitely. Like Jake Clark, I never understood this because I posted this comment before I went to Save Aware because we had a couple alumni on. But as Jake Clark says, give us 72 hours and we'll change the way you see and live your life. When I first read that, I was like, the hell's this guy talking about?
Yeah.
Today when I was doing the final stuff for the podcast, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
He was right. So yeah, it's but there's a lot of great organizations here, just here in local Central Ohio is just so many great organizations. I mean, you just reach out if you're having trouble. If it doesn't work for you, just talk to somebody and somebody will steer in the right direction. So
it seems to be out. Like there's a ton of them out there now.
Yeah.
That's nice. A lot of resources. I think it's changed a lot over the years.
Yeah, I mean, definitely is. But I think I maybe yes and no. But I think the difference is like you can have all of them, but I still take it back to like my wife and I were just talking before you guys came down here, and like we talk a lot about stuff that we never talked about before. And one of the things was like we actually were talking about the cohort, right? Because part of me wanted my wife to go to that cohort, and we talked about it. It's like it's not her thing, and I get it. So we were kind of talking about that, where my mind was, because my mind is a little bit my mind's there right now, my heart's there right now. That and to people that don't know, they don't know, but that's okay. It's important to me. But like we were talking about that, because my wife wanted there's been organizations for a long time, but I just wasn't done suffering, and I just wasn't done beating myself up, and I wasn't done, doing it. So like she even said today, she always will say that to me, and the part of it, it used to make me feel really bad, but now I get it. When she says it to me, I'm like, yeah, I get it. But she's like, I just wanted you to have this, I wanted you to get help for so long. So they're out there. You just gotta, it's on us all to go get what we need. I mean, you got to go get get what you need for your life. So
it's your journey.
But there's all kinds of different places to do that. So thanks for letting me steal the show there for a second.
You're good. You're good.
I did have another question about that. So you did work with Amazon, huge corporation. You worked with the Gary Sinise Foundation as well through that. So what kind of impact do you see like these big organizations like Amazon, the Gary Sinise Foundation? Everybody who doesn't know that's Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah. So like what do you think the impacts like these big organizations are having on helping the veteran mental health crisis?
So it's weird to say, but the quantity of money coming in expanded that network 1,000-fold. So even like the Gary Sinise, some of like the money that Amazon donated to Wounded Warrior that is directly impacted by that, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So hundreds of home built, not just homes, but like ADA compliant homes, like getting like triple amputees ready to comfortably live in a home. And our volunteer organization is like thousands upon thousands of volunteers. All of our labor is just like volunteered, and all of our time is spent. And Amazon pays to fly you out there, put you in a hotel, pays for your food, and you spend 3 or 4 days like literally building the house, getting all like the yard ready, and just preparing those houses. That amount of manpower and money, I think, has made kind of like a game changer for it.
Yeah, I agree that anytime, because a lot of these organizations that you don't know, it's it's all about the money coming in. You know what I mean? Because I have one of my favorite things about Save a Warrior is like you don't pay anything for it.
Yeah.
Like we don't ask you for anything. So what that means is there's got to be a lot of donations. A lot of people got to really believe in the cause, and I think that's important. You know what I mean? Not having to pay $5,000, $15,000 to teach yourself right, because a lot of people don't have it right.
Right, for sure.
If you'd have told me I had to pay $5,000 to Save a Warrior, there's no way I was going to do that.
Yeah.
And we just talked about that before, but I would have spent $5,000 on bourbon.
Sure.
I probably spent $5,000 on Nikes now, but no, kidding.
Getting close for sure.
No.
Then
no, I'm not even close to that yet. But I mean, but no, but yeah, it is. It is important too. So if you are looking for those organizations, like you said, they're everywhere. Like they're everywhere. So look into it. I mean, believe it or not, I'm always like, with our we're a charity as well. Like the money we do, we're a small charity, but it has huge impacts. We just posted, 2 of our scholarship winners are just finishing up their sophomore years. So these donations that, your individual donations by people make a big impact. So do these donations by big organizations like Amazon and things like that. So, and a lot of things with your companies, if you're in a bigger company, look into that too, because a lot of them will match your donations if you're donating to other companies, which is huge. So money's a big deal. Yeah, especially for the healing and stuff like that. So
it's huge.
So let's talk about the kids again. So they're a little bit older now.
Yeah.
They watched you. They don't know you from military dad, but I'm sure
they were. You probably saw the photos. They were a little small. During that time.
So I'm sure they know the stories or watch you like reinvent yourself. You've done quite a few things since you've gotten out of the Air Force. Like, looking at them like right now, what kind of values do you think that you hope you've passed down on them?
I know just kind of dedication to where they're headed. They spend a lot of time on themselves for just kind of learning and growing. I think they got that from me, hopefully. But I remember when I think they were 3 and 4 when they came to my bachelor's graduation, and maybe 10 and 13 or 10 and 12 when they went to my master's graduation. And I think they saw just the scale and size and time and effort to put that in. And I think they're just exhibiting that now and what they're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. When I wrote that, I don't think I've asked that question before. So when I was typing it up today, I was like, how do I answer that? Because a lot of times when I write these questions down, I'm like, what would my answer be? Right. So, which is always easier to ask somebody else the question than answer it. But, the values, when I thought about that one, it was like, holy cow, like if I were to go back a few years, I'd come up with some like value of like, hard work and like, dedication and but now it's like, when I look at it, like one of the things I'm like amazed about my boys is like the compassion they have. They 100%, not 100%, because that's me being self-deprecating, but because I do have a big heart and I am a lovable guy. I used to deny that, right? But their compassion, that value they have, they've got from my wife and I, is just, it's amazing when I see them and how they can look at a situation and generally what I could be annoying as hell, but they can always find like the silver lining in it. Except for my son, right? The 20-year-old who just got hit by an unlicensed, uninsured motorist. He's not feeling the happiness from that, but but I, that value and this, and just the value, like I watch them as they grow older. Like I was making a joke about, the toiletries and stuff like that. But like, I watch my son, like, who's been here, both of them, the middle one who, well, even my oldest one, like, cause like, COVID hit, so he was home, studying, like watching, like getting through nursing, like watch him study, because I had no idea about that, right? Like, like, oh, you graduated. Oh, by the way, you got to pass a test, but watching, them, him buckle down and do that. And then watching, my son who's, working and doing his master's, and then like my youngest son who's a civil engineer, watching him like actually studying. I'm like, holy cow, like all these things that I hope they've gotten it. Right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, but
sure.
the one thing for me is just really that like compassion and like, being able to just, they're using really good space, except for Nate, my middle son. He's a little bit like me. He can get crabby, but, but in general, it's just, when you think about when I asked that question to you, it's like, man, my answers change over time. Man, I just want to be good people too. Just be a good person. Right.
Yeah.
Be
that was from the beginning with those guys, like everyone in school, be nice to. I think a good pass down was like, ask for help if you need it.
Yeah.
Especially our oldest who hasn't worked construction before. I'm like, hey, if you don't know how to do something, ask.
Yeah.
And now they feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah. That's one thing I have with my son. Cause like, my dad doesn't like when I pick on him, but I feel like, he's right there. Like, I feel like there wasn't a lot of like, even if I still ask him and it's not, and I'm not making him wrong or trying to pick on him, but like, he doesn't give me a lot of advice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not like something that it's been accustomed to. Like, if I ask him something, it's not like, he's not going to say, I think you should do that.
Yeah.
A long time, I used to think that was like, I was really pissed off about that. Right. But then again, who wants your dad or anybody telling you what to do? Because I used to tell people what to do all the time.
Yeah.
But asking for help, I always tell my kids that's a huge thing. Like the amount of like, my wife's family is super close. I talk to my kids all the time. Like I didn't have that. Like, I mean, and it's not to knock my dad, but we didn't have a big family, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you have that out there, ask, right? It's true. Like, why do stuff on your own?
I can't give you count on one hand about conversations with my parents.
Yeah.
Like not one hand grown up, but with these guys every single day.
Yeah.
That was the goal. So it worked out.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. And helping that, just being a good person is great. And I think they're doing okay. I think my wife balanced them out like yin and yang.
That's
we
good.
say, I think, yeah.
That's good.
I don't know if my wife's always the yin or yang or however it goes. But we're getting close to a couple hours here, so just a couple more questions. We went pretty quick, but we talked a lot about mental health. So what do you think that is with the big focus on mental health? The mental health crisis right now for the working class, military, first responders. What do you think is not being done that should be done?
I know the outreach organizations are out there. I remember being in and seeing zero communication. I don't remember seeing anything about any kind of support organizations. They say, hey, here's your out processing through the VA.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. Not even like I walked through the VA yesterday for my annual appointment. There's still not signs up for any kind of wounded warrior, saw nothing at all at our VA clinic. The communication is just nothing. Yeah. And if you walk through that mental health clinic, there's one person sitting there and they're usually pretty surly. So you don't get that kind of support or warm and fuzzy. It's kind of bizarre. I think that's what it is. I think communication is severely lacking. Yeah,
I still think it's just one of those things. Like I'm totally comfortable talking about it. Like, I used to not anymore. And I think that's the number one thing. It's like, people are still not comfortable with it. I think that's an agreement. There's a lot of great organizations like we talked about earlier. There's a lot of benefits out there, but you just get like, people don't want to talk about it. People don't want to like have the conversation and be like, oh yeah. And do that. Like, the VA, there's a lot of stuff about how to treat people equally and like some weird signs up in the VA, the Columbus one, but there's a lot of like, I don't think I remember seeing 988
no, not
much. Nope. That's your point. I'm going to have to look at that next time I go back, which I'm going now. I made it. Dad, we're even now. We're even.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the VA. I got my claim in.
Maybe about 4 to 7 years.
I got a year to get it down. I mean, I've been twice. Right, I got my hearing aids.
Yeah,
we're clean. You get off my back, Dad.
Yeah,
I made a declaration. I was going to do that to my dad and also to Jennifer.
Hearing aids are right down the road for me. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's great.
Right down the street from that.
So, last question before we get to the not so fun part about the podcast, but what would you say to any like veteran or working class person that's stuck or isolated and unsure of their next chapter of their life? What would you recommend to them?
I'd probably say reach out to wherever you think you're going, to somebody in that kind of group, and just get that advice on like what that transition was like. I think that'd be like the biggest benefit for them. Even just having that conversation. Most of like I don't know what they're called in other portions of the different militaries. Like we had first shirts who are like our support mechanism, like we're talking about this whole time. if I kind of knew more about what they did and where they could guide you, I think I would have talked to him more, but definitely just reach out.
Yeah.
That's your first step. Super easy.
Yeah, I think like now that's a good point. I was just talking about earlier. Is like there's so many resources out there. If you're struggling, just reach out, or you're not sure of something. Just ask. I mean, just get past that courage of not. I was just talking to somebody today. How many times like I didn't know something, I pretend to know it.
Oh yeah,
I was afraid to admit that I didn't know something. You got to get past that stuff. So, anything else you want to chat about?
I think that was it.
We hit it all.
We got it.
Got off your list.
Yeah.
We've had people bring a list like it's some
I should have brought a list. My gosh.
No, I'm kidding. They have brought it, but I'm glad you didn't. We used to get there when we need to get out.
Yeah.
So I got the big book over here. It's fine. So with that, I'd like to, before we get into the bad, I'll thank you again, but thank you very much for coming in. I'm glad I got to meet you. I've been looking forward to having you come in.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it.
And thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your honesty, and thank you for everything you do for these organizations. I know they're important to you. We do have a gift before we go in there. We've got a mug here.
Yeah.
A beer mug.
Yeah, they gave out the actual kind of the runners of the group. That's a fishing lure protector. So you just wrap it around your fishing pole with all your stuff in it. And they gave away those mugs during the presentation. I told them I'd plug you on.
I'm convinced that you only did it because it is the Warriors Wangling.
I wanted to hear you say
Warriors
it as
Wangling
many
walleye.
times as possible.
But again, it is a great tournament. I'm going to try to see how it works next year. It's usually in April. April. Good time frame. So, and if you haven't had walleye, went walleye fishing. It's a huge fun. It's a pretty cool thing. I got the opportunity to do that a couple of times.
We fished Friday the day after, so it was good.
But thank you for that. We have some other stuff. So we'll get to the point of the night where we're going to honor a veteran who took their life tonight. We're going to honor U.S. Army Specialist Curtis J. Smith, 29 years old. Curtis was born on October 29th, 1985 in Norwalk, Ohio. Curtis took his life on August 10th, 2015 in Bellevue, Ohio. After graduating from high school, Curtis enlisted in the Ohio Army National Guard as a wheeled vehicle mechanic and was assigned to the 371st Sustainment Brigade in Springfield, Ohio. During his time with the 371st Sustainment Brigade, Curtis deployed to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. At the time of his death, Curtis was a diesel mechanic for Norfolk and Southern Railroad. Curtis enjoyed hunting, working out at the gym, and helping people farm. Curtis loved anything that ran on diesel and was a member of the Volkswagen TDI Club. He truly cherished being a father and loved spending time with his wife, Leslie, and daughter, Lily. Curtis is survived by his wife, Leslie, daughter, Lily, son, Colby, mother and stepfather, Kimberly and Nathan, father, Alan, grandparents, Donald, Lauren, Sherry, Ruth, Tom, and Linda, brothers, Joshua, Chase, and Cody, sisters, Kaylee, Elise, and Kirsty, and numerous other relatives and friends. And please, if you or someone you know is in crisis and might be considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Line at 988 or 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255, or you can now chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat. So again, I would like to thank you for coming on. Thank you for making episode 75 pretty special, pretty big number.
Yeah.
Seems like just yesterday we started, but thanks for coming in. Thanks for sharing your story. We'll see everybody in a few weeks. I think Josh just pulled up. We have one of my freshmen.
Oh yeah,
from school is going to be coming into town. We have a couple. We're going to start the out of towners that are coming in here. June 5th. They'll be coming from upstate New York. Adam got
another Air Force coming up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's you there. So it's going to be a while for Air Force. The flag won't go up until August. Hopefully June 19th is an Army guy. We need something. Then we do have some really great episodes coming up. Jasmine is I'm looking really forward to. Jasmine's going to be coming up from the Louisville, actually Fort Knox area. She's actually a Gold Star spouse who lost her first husband. And then she's also very active in that now. She's actually a veteran herself. She's going to be coming up. And then later in July, we're actually having Brett Casey, whose grandfather was the last living World War II Medal of Honor winner.
Yeah.
So he's been very well versed with the whole Medal of Honor people. So we're looking forward to doing, the recipients of that and been engrossed in that for his whole life. So a lot of great stories. Brett's going to be coming up from Louisville as well. So I've got some openings coming up. Some of those have been filled. I just haven't done that, but please, if you'd like to come in, it's a great experience. I think we feed you pretty well.
Yeah.
it's a good opportunity to share your story, and hopefully, I don't hope, I just know that your story will resonate with someone. And again, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for what you're still doing for the communities around here. And
I love it.
And thank you. That's all I can say.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming on. All right, everybody. We'll see everybody in a few weeks. Everyone have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.